this journey of me following the migrants went from sort of 10 in the morning, all around the clock, to late at night, to the point where, you know, on buses, on trains, through streets, at every key point, French military police and the French police, they were there. They were on the bus, taking down notes, taking pictures, but not doing anything to deter the migrants or stop them, just being there. I was sat in the tent and he was showing me through photos of his phone, scrolling through. This was barbaric, horrific stuff. Blokes going through walls in vehicles and then jumping out and shooting everyone. You know, his WhatsApp picture was him with a mask on, with a gun like that.
You're in a tent with this guy?
I'm in a tent with this guy, and actually he was just showing me this stuff. I'm just thinking, this is not the kind of bloke you want to be coming to the UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
There you are, up you get. Good morning and welcome to The Breakfast Show right here on Talk. I'm your host, Kevin O'Sullivan, and I'll be with you all the way to 10 o'clock. Stand by for 4 fantastic hours of news, views and topical debate. Get involved, get on the phone and call me on 0344 499 1000, or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number and I promise to play your message out. It's Tuesday, December the 23rd, only 2 days to Christmas. Here's what's coming up. After a dreadful year of letting migrants cross the channel dangerously, here's Labour's bold promise for 2026. The numbers won't come down. But Kia, what about alleged hardline Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood's all-singing, all-dancing crackdown? What about the amazing Smash the Gangs deal Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper was only just in Greece sealing last week? What about your astonishingly successful deterrent, the hilarious one-in, one-out scheme? How about leaving the European Convention on Human Rights? Because your refusal to quit that pointless club is the reason why that, when it comes to the ongoing invasion of illegal foreigners, things can only get worse. So there you have it, folks, a gormless government that is now admitting it won't even begin to solve the migrant crisis. Isn't that special? 0344 499 1000. In other news, the passionate protests of the people have come to nothing. Hundreds of asylum seekers will move into the Crowborough Army barracks in East Sussex within weeks as the government continues to move the deck chairs around on the deck of the Titanic. 03444991000. In other news, police say they are finally moving to cut back on the scourge of non-crime hate incidents. Top cops pledging that the relentless recording of non-crimes will be replaced by a common-sense approach. About time, thereby implicitly admitting that since 1999 this crap has been going on for more than a quarter of a century. They have now implicitly admitted, the Rozzers, that since they started wasting their time on people who haven't broken the law, madness has been the name of the game. We're going to have a common sense approach from now on, implying implicitly that until now there hasn't been a common sense approach, because there is no common sense in the police wasting their time on stuff that is not against the law, on non-crimes. Why do they do this? How about stopping this Orwellian thought police nonsense altogether? That would be a plan, wouldn't it? 03444991000. Also today, Labour announces plans to ban restaurants from boiling live lobsters. Is that a good thing? It is if you're a lobster. 03444991000. The Andrew, formerly known as Prince, has had his gun licence revoked. No more solo shooting for Mr. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. Birds and wildlife heaving a sigh of relief. What is it about these royals? They're never happier than when they're killing birds, killing animals with shotguns. 03444991000. Plus, the man who makes £924,000 a year giving cars away free. And also, after a canal in Shropshire drained like a bath with the plug out, the truth about sinkholes. Time is running out to charge that dork from rap band Bob Vylan with an anti-Semitic hate crime. Only a few days left before the statute of limitation runs out for Mr. Vylan. His real name is Pascal Foster Robinson, or is it Robinson Foster? Who cares? Either way, real kind of street name, that, isn't it? He was brought up on the mean streets of Ipswich. Anyway, please don't charge him by, I think it's the 28th of December, for what he said, death to the IDF at Glastonbury. He gets away with it. Why is that? Why is that? You know, the police saying that, oh, we're going to crack down, we're going to stop people chanting globalise the intifada, we're going to stop them shouting jihad at these marches. Well, what about charging this guy with quite clearly inciting racial hatred and violence? Death to the IDF. That's a call for Jews to be killed. Why haven't Somerset and Avon Police charged this guy? They've got a few days left. They've got until the 28th. Why won't they do it? 03444991000. And finally, the trigger warnings taking the fun out of Christmas pantomimes. Oh, yes, they are. All that and so much more. So don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Tuesday morning together, and with me for the first hour. At this ungodly hour is the great political commentator Charlie Rowley. Welcome, Charlie.
Good morning. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks.
That's very lively at this time.
Yes, well, I thought that was a superb introduction.
Yeah.
I was chomping at the bit to have a bit of a go about that Bob Vylan character.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that soon because, as I say, there's a 6-month statute of limitations, a charge that he would face, which would be inciting violence, potentially inciting racial hatred and violence. These are charges that must be brought within 6 months. It was June the 28th at Glastonbury when Bob Vylan, or what's his name, Pascal Foster Robinson. Is it Robinson Foster? I must look that up. It's almost as if I care, isn't it? Whatever his posh, hyphenated name is. That's when he chanted at Glastonbury, death to the IDF, which is, of course, a call for soldiers, Jewish soldiers for the Israeli Defence Force to be killed. That strikes me as a call to violence. Strikes me as anti-Semitic as well, racial hatred, isn't it? I mean, I'm not a big fan of hate crimes, of charging people for things they say. If in my ideal world, that wouldn't happen, but those laws are there. And the fact that Somerset and Avon Police seem to have contrived to come up with a reason not to charge him, I think says a lot. It speaks volumes. You know, the police, pro-Palestine, that's my view. I think they're blatantly anti-Israel, the police. We'll talk about that later. But Charlie, let's get down to business. Let's talk first about Downing Street is now saying that with 41,000, I think it's about 41,600 migrants have crossed the Channel illegally in small boats this year, pretty much a record. Since Starmer took office on January the 5th, 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, the number I think is around about 60,000. It's absolutely astronomical. This has been a bumper year, worse and worse and worse. And we've had, as you know, just recently, this great sort of trumpet clarion call from Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary. I've got all these crackdowns. I'm gonna solve this crisis. We're all going, are you going to leave the European Convention on Human Rights? Oh, you're not, are you? Well, if you're not going to do that, you're not going to solve anything. And sure enough, this week, since last Saturday, not the Saturday just gone, the one before, we had more than 2,000 came across in a week. Saturday just gone, 803. That's a massive amount. The previous Saturday, 737. For 4 weeks before that, none whatsoever. Labour saying, you see, our deterrents are starting to work. No, it was just the weather. The weather was bad for a month, 4 weeks. It turned into a mill pond last Saturday week and has been pretty much ever since. So they've been pouring across. This government has no deterrents, and depressingly, somewhat unsurprisingly, though, in a rare fit of honesty, because Downing Street isn't often honest these days, they usually lie, but they have said, extraordinarily really, we cannot promise that the number of illegal channel crossings will fall next year. So they're basically saying, you've seen the shambles of the past year, it looks like it's probably going to be worse next year. That's extraordinary, isn't it, really?
It is. You're absolutely right. You know, over 40,000 people crossing this year, over 60,000 since Sir Keir Starmer became Prime Minister. And the charge levelled against him is that he's not smashing the gangs as he said he would. He's completely just smashing records, allowing more people and more people to come into this country illegally. And you're right. You know, if only they hadn't spent so many years in opposition thwarting the previous government's attempts to have a national security borders bill, criticising Rwanda, blocking that at every turn, particularly in the House of Lords. You never know what might have happened. The fact is we haven't got, and don't get me wrong, the Tories didn't get on top of it themselves, but at least there were, I thought, a few plans that might have been successful.
Late in life they came up with measures that might have worked. I mean, what really annoys me, Yvette Cooper's very fond of saying this, the Rwanda scheme just didn't work. No, Yvette, the word you're looking for is start. The Rwanda scheme didn't start. It did not start because your boss, that impetuous fool Starmer, ripped it all up on day one, calling it a gimmick, thereby flushing £700 million worth of British taxpayers' investment straight down the drain, saying that this was a gimmick. Ever since then, he has had no deterrence whatsoever. He spent something like a year, 8 months going, smash the gangs, got to smash the gangs. Finally, that was kind of just conveniently, quietly parked in a cul-de-sac because he realised, everybody realised that no gangs whatsoever had been smashed, and the government has no ability to do that. So that got parked, that got kind of shelved because it was becoming a national joke. Smash the gangs. Shut up! We haven't smashed any gangs. He spent like something like £200 million on the what they call it, this Border Security Command, this sort of crack squad that he set up, supplying them with the state-of-the-art electronic equipment, drones, surveillance equipment, hiring a £200,000 a year chief guy from the police, and hiring all these people. Nothing. None of that worked. So then he came up with the one-in, one-out scheme, which is just, to this day is a jaw-dropping joke. So this came in, the one-in, one-out scheme, which was never going to solve anything numerically anyway. I know what we're going to do to bring down the numbers. We're going to exactly swap migrants with France, swap a foreigner scheme. So we'll give them one back, they give one us back to us. The idea being that migrants coming to Britain would be deterred by the idea that they might be, just might be, the 1 in 17 migrants who was chosen to go back. Since the beginning of August, when that scheme came in, they've sent about 150 migrants back to France. France has sent us about 80 back. So that's supposed to be a deterrent, but in that time, something like 12,000 migrants have come across the Channel illegally. So that utterly does not work. So that's a long-winded way of saying that this government has contrived to be in a position where it has no deterrence whatsoever. So migrants getting on those small boats are not deterred by anything, but they are enticed by our plethora of encouragements. 50 quid a week benefits, 4-star hotel, free food, free doctors, free lawyers, free dentists, free God knows what. We have only enticements, no deterrence. This is, again, it's astonishing. It's shocking. It's shocking.
Well, you've summed it up perfectly there, Kevin, as you always do. I'm minded to say.
He's trying to get more work here, folks. and he's succeeded. Can we get Charlie in tomorrow,
I'll be
please?
back tomorrow. I'll be back. I'll clear the diary. I don't need to do that. It was empty. But you're absolutely right. There is no deterrent. And if you take that £700 million scheme that was spent under the last government on Rwanda, of course that's a lot of money. But when you consider the £6 million a day that it costs to house these people in migrant hotels, when you take the, I can't remember how many billions it is that we're giving to France in order for them...
technically we gave them £500 million. That was Rishi Sunak had 2023, Rishi Sunak, to Macron to patrol French beaches properly. I never could quite get my head around that, us giving the French money to police their own country. I mean, in itself, quite a bizarre arrangement. But we did give them £500 million, but we'd also given them several hundred billion before that,
yes,
for the same reason. And the French haven't done that. I mean, they just stand there sort of waving au revoir.
Yes, and until it was one visit, I think, by Macron, where we saw, the French border force go and sort of slash one of the dinghies to sort of prevent it leaving off. But that's probably the only one.
A photo
opportunity. Yeah. Exactly. You mentioned Yvette Cooper. I mean, it's not as if she didn't have time in opposition as the Shadow Home Secretary to try and get a working plan in order. It wasn't, she was the former chair of the Home Affairs Select Committee. If there's anyone that should have known really the ins and outs and the failures of the Home Office and the failures of the last government, then she should have been able to come in and have real command over that department. Instead, it was a complete flop, and she's been moved out to Foreign Secretary, where she spends most of her time out of the country.
Well, and last week was indeed in Greece, sealing a deal on smashing the gangs at source. So the idea was that those Eastern European countries down towards the Mediterranean will stop migrants coming in and stop people smuggling gang activity there. And I thought, well, why Greece? Do these people smugglers all live in Athens or something? I mean, the point is that you have her basically messing around in Greece for no apparent reason. You've got Shabana Mahmood making these performative announcements that don't... what we're going to do, we're going to stay in the ECHR, but we're going to see if we can make some of the clauses a little less unfriendly towards us. So we're going to try and change a bit of, forget it. You know, they're basically saying clauses 3 and 8, which are the right to a family life and the right not to be persecuted if sent home. These are the big clauses that mean we can never get rid of migrants. Shabana Mahmood basically wants to go cap in hand to the ECHR and say, any chance if we could change those? They're just going to go no.
Yep.
But the BBC, the Labour Party, our Labour government, are allergic to even the very suggestion that we might think about our membership of the ECHR. And what I always say about the ECHR, the European Convention on Human Rights, is we don't need to be a member of that club to still have human rights. What on earth do we get out of it? Nothing at all. But unless we leave it, if you leave it, it will not at a stroke solve our migrant crisis. But if you don't leave it, you cannot remotely think about solving the migrant crisis. It is the absolutely crucial, necessary launch pad to solving the migrant crisis. If you don't do that, you literally cannot solve this spiralling, escalating chaos that we find ourselves in. Therein lies the problem with Labour.
Exactly. And, it's not as if there aren't, former Labour Home Secretaries. Even David Blunkett has suggested that we should leave the ECHR, even if it's only temporary, but he still recognises that we need to leave in order to take back control. I know that's
make our own sovereign decision.
Make our own sovereign decision, yeah. Exactly. Because that's what people want, and it's recognising. It's just common sense that the ECHR was set up of its time, and the UK has been brilliant in exporting human rights right across the world. So it's not as if we're an outlier in not wanting to uphold human rights. And I just think, look, it's. I worry on a day-to-day basis, obviously, about this government for obvious reasons, but being a former Tory, but
being a citizen of this country, more like, doesn't matter what your political affiliation is. Yeah. There are many reasons to worry about this government.
Well, but what really is just, I'm dumbstruck as to how a government can, 18 months in, now admit, which is obviously true under their circumstances, where they will say we can't ensure the numbers will come down. Well, we know you can't ensure the numbers can't come down because you haven't put in a deterrent and you scrapped everything beforehand, and everything you've put before isn't going to work. So of course you're not going to confirm the numbers won't come down. But the one thing that this Labour government will be able to survive, dare I say it, is if they stop telling people what they're going to do and start showing the public what's happening, and that is dealing with illegal migration. That's why the Tories, partly why the Tories failed and they got kicked out of office. Labour said that they were going to come in. You're absolutely right with that new super revved up, I think you called it a crack team of border force officials. I thought that it sounded more like something else.
They're called the Border Security Command.
Border Security Command. I mean, where's that? I mean, we don't see
they've
it.
had about £200 million worth of our money.
And we're not seeing any returns.
Yeah,
quite literally.
Because, of course, their job was to smash the gangs. Number of gangs smashed so far, a big fat 0. It's sort of comical. It's funny to watch this, but not in a good way. It's sort of tragically funny. The level of incompetence, the level of hopelessness in this government is just off the scale to an almost kind of laughable extent, except there's nothing to laugh at here. But if you didn't laugh, you'd cry. We'll come back to other aspects of the migrant crisis later on, because looks like there's some sort of deck chair moving around the decks of the Titanic. They're moving migrants from one barracks to another for no apparent reason, saying they're going to reduce the use of expensive hotels, but meanwhile they're commissioning more and more. It's just absolute nonsense. But we'll go to the police after the break. We're going to talk about this sort of alleged move to at least cut back on these ludicrous non-crime hate incidents. That next, stay tuned.
every Monday to Wednesday, midnight until 1, it is Talkback.
Such a shortage of housing. You've got landlords, right, have taken that on board, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Your stories, your opinions, it is your chance to have your say.
So they're literally just being rented out as hotels, basically.
Yeah, rent a load of hotels.
Well, that has really shone a light for me.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Here we are. This is the paper review, so let's do it. The Daily Telegraph front page story. Charlie, still with Charlie Rowley, political commentator. We are the only two people who are awake in the entire country. Actually, no, we've got a control room full of people as well. So, anyone awake? Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. It's still dark. Yeah, non-crime hate to be scrapped. Now, this is a system, I didn't realise it's been going for so long, but the police began recording non-crime hate incidents in 1999. So a rancid tradition that's been going on for more than a quarter of a century. This is the process by which, if I see Charlie Rowley staggering down the street, you know, one of his hate placards or something like that. No, seriously, if I see, I could say, oh, Charlie Rowley said something horrible about me in the office. You know, something racist. In fact, he did, actually. I have reported this. No, that's a joke. Yeah.
We'll cancel that booking for tomorrow.
He can't come back. He called me a nasty name. No, seriously. If I could phone the police and say, Charlie Rowley said this nasty racist thing about me, and whilst they wouldn't investigate, they'll just write it down. So there's no corroboration. It hasn't been proved. It's just me saying something happened. The police write it down. A non-crime hate incident. They say this is important to build up pictures and portraits of potential criminals, people who could be one to watch in the future, which in itself I would suggest is utterly illegal. It isn't their job to monitor potential lawbreakers. It is their job to catch actual lawbreakers. You know, oh, we don't like the look of him. He could be bad in the future. No, that's not your job. Anyway, they record these, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of them. Loads of police time. They've been doing it for a quarter of a century. It says here in the Telegraph, encouraging first paragraph, non-crime hate incidents are to be scrapped under plans that Police Chief will present to the Home Secretary next month. So in itself, that's getting vague. What will the Home Secretary say? She might say, don't scrap them. Police leaders have decided that non-crime hate incidents are no longer, quotes, fit for purpose. They never were. After warnings that recording them undermines freedom of speech and diverts officers away from fighting crime. Now listen to this, Charlie. Under the plans, non-crime hate incidents will be replaced with a new common sense system where only a fraction of such incidents will be recorded under the most serious category of antisocial behaviour. So in other words, they're going to carry on. Either do them or don't do them. Scrap it, stop it. If it's not crime, it is nothing to do with the police, right?
Absolutely right. And how many police officers' time has been wasted going to investigate these non-hate crime incidents, turning up at people's front doors because they've been part of a WhatsApp group where they've just been discussing their children's education that might be a bit critical of the head teacher. That was an incident that was widely reported. You know, the police going to in Wales, I remember it vividly, the story of going to a shopkeeper in Wales who had been burgled, shoplifted 5 times and decided to put up a sign in his front shop window say scumbags not welcome. And the police went to go and investigate the shopkeeper for putting up the sign. Not to mention the 5, cases of shoplifting that he'd been the victim of.
Well, he was besmirching the reputation of decent law-breaking shoplifters.
Exactly. And that's, you wonder then whose side of the police on. And I know people had mixed views, for example, about police and crime commissioners. Those roles have been scrapped now under this Labour government, but at least that was a particular role where somebody, even if nobody really knew who they were in their local community, they were the ones that were setting sort of the police plan. They should have been the ones that were on the side of victims and should have been the ones holding chief constables to account to say, hang about, why on earth are your police officers and your police forces, or your police force if you're in a particular local part of the country, going out to investigate people just having WhatsApp conversations or saying hurty words online, through social media. That is not the job of the police, to go knocking on people's doors to say, oh, by the way, you sent a tweet when you were in the United States of America and we're here to arrest you at the airport, Mr. Graham. I've forgotten his name.
Graham
Linnean. And I mean, what an absolutely bizarre case. What a complete waste of taxpayers' time, money, and what a waste of police time.
Yeah, exactly right. 5 armed coppers waiting for Graham Linnean because he may or may not have tweeted something not very nice about trans people. The police need to work out their priorities, their sense of priorities. They said, since Suella Braverman, the former Home Secretary, tightened the rules, the numbers on non-crime hate incidents recordings have fallen. So in 2023, first quarter, 2,272. This quarter, the first quarter of this year until April 2025, 1,649. That's still a lot. That is still one hell of a lot and a complete and utter waste of time.
And do you know why that is? I think, personally, speaking freely, on a station that champions free speech.
This is the home of common sense and free speech.
Absolutely. When you have a particular situation in the country, like we saw the riots over the summer, not this year, the year before, and you had a Prime Minister, when people were then expressing what was a very heated view about illegal immigration, something that still people feel very strongly about, but a Prime Minister that then goes out to say, well, you're just jumping on a far-right bandwagon. You talk about immigration, you must therefore be part of this far-right conspiracy group of people. When people then, of course, become even more angry, and then the police start to investigate your tweets, and you have cases then, unfortunately, like Lucy Connolly, who did go too far in what she said, but being banged up for however long she was, I think totally unnecessary in my view, and that's why we've seen this increase in these non-hate crime incidents, because the left, I'm afraid, have provoked a number of people that are just speaking common sense, that are crying out for things to change, and yet they're being clamped down on by the police because people just get offended.
Yeah, these are offence crimes. This notion, this wrong notion that it's somehow illegal to offend people, to be offensive. I mean, don't go out of your way to be offensive, but I try not to offend people, but if I do, and I seem to manage to do that with monotonous regularity, it's not against the law. Too many coppers seem to think it is. Now, the 13,200 NCHI's non-crime hate incidents were recorded. What's this? So of the 13,200 non-crime hate incidents recorded, there were among them a 9-year-old was written down because he called a primary school classmate a retard, so he got a non-crime hate incident, a 9-year-old kid. And 2 secondary school girls were in the book because they said another pupil smelt like fish. There were complaints about dodgy haircuts, soiled underpants and transphobic tweets, all have been recorded as non-crime hate. It's a 9-year-old kid calling a classmate a retard, goes into the police book. This nonsense has got to stop altogether. I don't want any of this crap about, on serious cases, we'll still record the serious ones. No, don't record any. It's not your job. If there's no crime, it is none of the police's business. End of. Let me know what you think about this. It's time to get rid of non-crime hate incidents. Non-crime hate incidents, folks, are the sort of things that get recorded in North Korea and Russia and China, where Big Brother is watching you, where the police are monitoring your behaviour, where they're not so much the police, they're the thought police. What do you think? It's time to stop this. 03444991000. When we come back, still with the law, Prince Andrew, or the Andrew formerly known as Prince Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, Mr. Mountbatten Windsor, has been stripped of his gun licence. Now, that will be shocking to him, because he loves standing around shooting the hell out of birds, blasting poor birds out of the sky. That's his favourite pastime. So good news for our feathered friends, but bad news for that oaf Andrew. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan. I'm with political commentator Charlie Rowley. And Charlie, you'll be pleased to know that when I said anybody awake out there, I wasn't confident, but they are. They are. Look, this is from Chris. Morning, Kev. I'm up every morning at 5 a.m. and watch Talk every day. Good decision, Chris. Anyway, to all of you, a happy Christmas and a happy New Year. Thanks for the only news of common sense. Thank you, Chris. Very happy compliments of the season to you too. This is from John in Liverpool. I'm awake as always, Kev. It's the evenings I have trouble with. Good morning, Kevin and Charlie. Merry Christmas to you both and all the team and staff. Merry Christmas to you too, John. This is nice, isn't it? Very pleasant. Yes. This is, I must do this again. Who's awake then? I should try that in my evening show. Yeah, because what happens with my evening show is I come on at 7, everybody's wide awake by 10 past, they're all fast asleep. I am nothing if not the perfect cure for insomnia. Right, what have we got here? Karen. Kevin and Charlie, I'm awake as I have to go to work shortly. Thankfully, it's my last day. Karen, well, have a nice last day at work and have a lovely Christmas. Fantastic. Look at all this. We got loads. This is Phil. Morning, Kevin and Charlie. I'm up and working. Have been since 6 o'clock. Someone has to keep paying tax keep all these freeloaders that are invading our country daily. Ho, 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 Merry Christmas, Phil in Coventry. I know what you mean. Yeah, that's what we're doing. We're working to pay our tax, to keep the welfare system going. Dean says it's quite obvious that these illegals are wanted here for some reason. The smuggling gangs are the globalist leaders here and within some of the EU governments. It's time they admitted it. Dean from East London. I mean, a lot of people do feel this. They look at the shambles of the migrant crisis and they look at Labour and they say, well, you must want this. Otherwise, if you wanted to solve this crisis, if you showed some resolve like President Trump, it is surely solvable, but they don't. So people just go, well, they must want this. I don't think it is that. I think we are dealing with levels of incompetence that are hard to comprehend.
Yes. No, and I think also, and I'm not, providing a justification at all for what this government is doing, but I genuinely believe, which is alarming, that people, when you do political debates, you have people on panels, you see anybody on the left, they are absolutely adamant and they believe it when they say that everybody coming over in a small boat is a genuine refugee. They cannot see the wood through the trees, that they are economic migrants, they are illegal immigrants, they are chancing their arm by getting on the dinghies, they are not fleeing the conflicts that they would have you believe. They are pulling the wool over your eyes. You've got to be a bit tough, but they genuinely believe these people are victims of huge conflicts, even though that they are men in their late 20s, 30s.
Not to them, not to the apologists that you're talking about. They believe that the majority of these migrants coming across the channel are women and babies.
Yes,
they're just not. Darren Jones, who's now sort of the Prime Minister's sidekick, his right-hand man, he's called Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister, isn't he? He was on Question Time about 2-3 months ago, and he stated to millions of viewers, he said the vast majority of these people coming across the channel, he said, are women, babies and children. They're just not. In fact, 76% of them are young men between the ages of 16 and 34. That's a fact. In fact, the percentage is probably higher than that. They're nearly all, as they say, young men of military age. I prefer to say, given the statistics we're looking at as they rise to do with sex crime, young men of sexually active age from cultures where they have a very different attitude to women, and therein lies the problem. Let's quickly get on to this story that I did say we'd talk about. That's the front page of The Sun. Very compelling, eye-catching story. Police seize Andy gun licence. This is Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. Has had his gun licence revoked, and now he loves to go out there shooting birds. You know, the Royals, they're never happy unless they're killing wildlife with a blunderbuss. Remember what he said when he took Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and all these bevy of young beauties up to Sandringham for God knows what. Apparently there was lube and sex toys and sex poppers in all the bathrooms and everything. And when asked about that event by Emily Maitlis on that now notorious Newsnight interview, she said it was a straightforward shooting weekend. There are two things I think about that. Is one, it clearly wasn't a straightforward shooting weekend, but the way that he imagines we all know what a shooting weekend is. Straightforward shooting weekend.
Yes, how silly.
Can you imagine? I can't imagine anything worse. I have been on one once. A shooting weekend. I mean, I didn't shoot, but I did have to watch all these idiots blasting birds out of the sky, which I didn't like at all. But it was dreadful. I think these country people and how they think it's nice to spend a weekend. But this is strange. They've taken his licence away. He will be allowed still to shoot as long as he's under supervision. Apparently, when the police called at his Windsor home, Royal Lodge, on November the 19th. He didn't deign to speak to them himself. He sent down a valet. But they've taken his right to shoot on his own away. He will be allowed to shoot as long as he's under strict supervision. but he can't keep guns himself anymore, the police spokesman saying. On Wednesday, November the 19th, firearms licensing officers attended an address in Windsor to request that a man in his 60s voluntarily surrender his firearms and shotgun certificate. The certificate was surrendered, and we will not be commenting any further at this stage. Now, this story is a great story by The Sun, very good exclusive. But I'll be honest with you, it's hard to work out exactly from this copy why his shooting licence was taken away. You know, he was investigated for allegedly asking his Royal Protection coppers to investigate Virginia Giuffre, the woman who accused him of sexually abusing her on 3 continents, which was an abuse of his position. So he was in a police investigation on that. They decided not to proceed, but often, apparently, if you're in a police investigation and you have a gun licence, that gun licence will be looked at. And that seems to be what's happened here. But as for why they took the decision to take away this gun licence from the former prince, it's not clear.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I think it also gives another potential reason, because he's obviously changing address, moving from the lodge to a small hold up on the Sandringham estate.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't get carried away with that. He's having what they call. I love the way they got on these. He was moving into, you know, Hollybush Cottage. Yeah, he's got a so-and-so cottage. And you look at it, you know, that's not a cottage. Yes. That's a skyscraper. You know, it's a mansion. You know, but he's having a Sandringham cottage, probably a sizable residence, revamped. It's being renovated. He'll have a full staff.
Totally.
I mean, don't worry too much about this guy. He's not going to be living on his own, making his own toast.
Well, that's the problem, because I think with that change of address, that might again lead to speculation why the licence has been either revoked until he registers again with the new address. But again, all speculation. But people are saying, because he has hit very rock bottom in his world, having all of his titles taken away, having been asked to move out of his home, and you know, the life of living as a royal, you know, he's said to be very down. Also, stories in the paper about Beatrice, his daughter, trying to sort of cool things with him in terms of relations. She sort of distanced herself from him of late, it appears. That's stories in the papers. You know, is the speculation around having his licence taken away because of mental health? We don't know.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point, because he is at surprisingly, he's at a very low ebb, and there's something. You know, so he will be in the Royal Lodge in Windsor. This will be his last Christmas there. I think Fergie will be there as well, but the kids won't be there. He's not allowed to go to Sandringham for the first time. He can't spend time with the royal family. I mean, he has now become, you know, almost the ultimate pariah. And the British, when they get to the point, when they decide that you're persona non grata, they really go for it. So this guy is being sort of hit from all angles, and that this gun license thing is sort of seems to be the sort of tip of the rancid iceberg. You know, there's nothing that we won't do now to give Prince Andrew, or the former Prince Andrew, a kicking. Frankly, he deserves it, but there's some small scintilla of my humanity, my very small humanity, that does feel a bit sorry for him.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, because, you know, he has not been convicted of anything. That's the thing, you know. He lied. We know that he lied in that interview that you referenced earlier on with Emily Maitlis, by saying that he ended a relationship with a convicted paedophile.
He's a liar. He's a liar,
which he didn't.
Yeah.
So, you know, you've got to balance up the, you know, this innocent till proven guilty on the one hand, but also proven liar on the other. But also, I just, if I was Andrew, or not that I ever want to be in his position, or would be, but if I was advising him, I would just want all of the stuff to come out, all of the Epstein files. I just wanted the whole bucket of whatever they've got on him to just come out. Otherwise, it will be drip, 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 day after day. Every time it's referenced, he'll be brought up again. His name will be talked about, and only in this case with Epstein. I just want it all out there.
Yeah, and the pressure is now on Andrew to testify to Congress as they conduct their investigation into Epstein's activity. And I know the King is pressurising him to do it, to do the decent thing for once in his low life. It's unlikely, though. But yes, things just keep on getting worse for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. If you think you've had a bad year, just think about Andrew. It'll make you feel a bit better. Seriously. Next up, let's talk about lobsters. The government is proposing that boiling live lobsters in restaurants will be banned under its animal rights reforms. I don't know what you think about that. Let me know. Restaurateurs are up in arms saying leave us alone. But you know me. The chink in my tough guy armour is I'm an animal lover, obsessive animal lover, so good. Because I don't think it's very nice to boil animals alive. Do you? 0344 499 1000. We'll talk about that next.
Some breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
That's something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
So this is a Talk exclusive we've been looking at.
I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, does these people who lead us actually hate Britain? Yeah. Do they not love our country and everything that we've stood for?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is The Breakfast Show. We're off to a flying start in the excellent company of political commentator Charlie Rowley. Charlie, just before you go, thank you for an excellent 60 minutes. Let's talk about Labour's move to ban boiling live lobsters in restaurants. The Emma Reynolds, the Environment Secretary, said the UK was a nation of animal lovers and the government is delivering the most ambitious animal welfare strategy in a generation. Restaurateurs have complained, saying leave us alone, we're having enough trouble as it is. But live boiling, the government says, is not an acceptable killing method. Robin Hancock, one of the co-founders of Wright Brothers, a leading seafood supplier which has 3 restaurants in London, said with hospitality rather on its knees, the machines to stun kill lobsters cost over £3,500 each. That is not small. But he does say, of course, people care about animal welfare. I mean, I have to say, as an animal lover, I don't see how you can argue against this. It cannot be right. You know, a lobster is one of our fellow living creatures, all God's creatures. You know, how would you like... You wouldn't take a cow or a pig and throw it into boiling fat or water, would you? So I think the government is right on this. I understand restaurants' concerns, but I don't like the idea of just chucking a living creature into boiling water. Do you?
No, I think you're absolutely right on this one, because, you know, I can't quite get the appeal as to walking into a restaurant and you see...
Yeah, so picking it. Could you take that one and... yeah.
Exactly. I don't... That's not appetising to me.
Do you know that famous story about Paul McCartney, a great animal lover, vegetarian, was walking down the beach somewhere and he saw a big tank restaurant and there were, you know, 50 very expensive lobsters, and of course he went in and bought every single one and took the tank out and put them all back into the sea. Yeah. I'd like to see more of that, but yeah, I mean, you were saying.
No, you're absolutely right, because I think, you know, knowing that it is live and you're seeing it in front of you, and then it's in the kitchen being boiled, you know, obviously incredibly hot temperatures to death, which you're then going to eat. That is, I think, something we can move on from. But you know, but I'm a huge meat lover. I'll eat. So I can understand people might think that I'm a hypocrite.
I don't eat meat, but I'm a fish eater, and I don't like lobster. I've never liked it. I find it a bit too rich.
I do, to be fair. I do, and crab. I've had. I've eaten crabs once or twice. But the
crabs I like.
You know, but the welfare reforms, I mean, you know, they're also alarming farmers, because, you know, I think there's supposed to be a cage ban on chickens and pigs. So I know we've got sort of battery hens, which, you know, a ban on keeping and maintaining chickens and other cattle and pigs in particular.
I mean, my feeling about that is what kind of cages are we talking about? Yeah. Do they have enough room? I mean, if they're all crammed into, then yeah, that has to stop. But if they're cages and they've got enough room, that would strike me that a cage for an animal is a practical tool necessary in agriculture.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah. I mean, we've got to see the detail, but I mean, farmers are already, I think, saying that, well, you know, our European counterparts will undercut us because they'll have different standards to what we're trying to apply in the UK. But broadly on the lobsters, yeah, I think you're right. I think we can. We are a nation of animal lovers, including our fishy friends, and we should just, if they're going to be served up, then they should be done so humanely.
Yeah, exactly right. Let me know what you think about that, folks. Is it right to ban the live boiling of lobsters in restaurants? You know what I'm talking about. You particularly see them when you go on holiday, don't you? There's a kind of restaurant that has a selection of big lobsters in a tank, and you can pick them out, which one you want. I've never done it. And I certainly wouldn't like to do it insofar as you're condemning that poor crustacean to a horrific death. Let me know what you think, though. Is that a step too far, or is it right that the government's going to ban the boiling of live lobsters in restaurants? 0344 499 1000. Big thanks to Charlie Rowley for a great start to the show. After the news, it's James Heal, Deputy Political Editor for The Spectator, about the big stories of the day, so I expect you to stay tuned. See you in a minute.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is hour 2 of this morning's breakfast show with me, Kevin O'Sullivan. I'm here until tomorrow, actually. And also, bizarrely, for reasons I can't quite work out, next Sunday, or this coming Sunday, the one after Christmas, I'm going to be doing breakfast then as well. So I finish on Christmas Eve, breakfast. I come back on Sunday breakfast, and then I don't come back until January the 5th. So I'm having a sort of extended break, but with a Sunday in the middle of it. Now, in the meantime, there's an important update for you there. Write that down. Let's get on with the show, shall we? For the next 10 minutes or so, let's talk to the Deputy Political Editor at The Spectator, the excellent James Heal. Good morning, James.
Morning, Kevin.
Well, first of all, let's talk about the migrant crisis. We've just covered the fact that, depressingly but kind of inevitably, in a rare fit of honesty, the government has admitted that the number of illegal crossings next year are unlikely to come down, which is extraordinary if you think about it. So they have had this terrible year of more than 41,000 already. They say it's likely to be even worse next year, so that's good. But in terms of where these migrants are housed, last week the government cleared out Napier barracks in Folkestone. After 5 years, it's been since 2020, this big barracks in Folkestone, which at times had as many as 450, 500 migrants in it, was finally cleared out. It was under a cloud because people said it was inhumane, it was dilapidated and not a nice place to be. They were suddenly shipped out overnight. Nobody really knows where they went, which is extraordinary. Home Office saying we don't talk about operational details. The word is they may be in the next few weeks on their way to Crowborough, the army barracks in East Sussex, where local residents, thousands of them, every weekend for about 4 or 5 weeks now, have been protesting, saying don't bring these migrants to our lovely, pretty Sussex town. But it looks like they're going to go there. At the moment, the Crowborough is empty, but won't be apparently within a week. But it just strikes me, and then they cleaned out Napier barracks, which doesn't seem to fit in with their stated policy of fewer asylum seeker hotels, more military barracks. So what are they doing clearing one out? Where are they going? When are they going to put people into Crowborough? And in the end, while admitting that they're not going to bring the numbers of illegal crossings down, isn't this government just basically moving the deck chairs around the deck of the Titanic?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that analysis. I think that, Labour is playing this game of whack-a-mole, where they try and shut down the hotels, they move people into barracks, then the barracks get challenged by legal orders, they move them out of there. I mean, really, the problem is, Kevin, is that until you actually deter the boats and stop people from coming, you're just going to get more and more people piling up in the asylum system, which is exactly what's happened. We've got a record level at the moment claiming asylum, and I think that is why we're going to see all these problems. And like Crowborough Barracks, get the local residents very annoyed, and they've raised, I think it is £70,000 in legal action just from sort of grassroots contributions, and I expect we'll see some sort of challenge to that, and arguing that these migrants shouldn't be put in these barracks and causing potential disturbances to local residents.
Indeed, and only was it 2 weekends ago, or was it 3? I can't quite remember. But Shabana Mahmood spent an entire weekend doing the media rounds, making these huge announcements. The big crackdown, the tough as old boots, hard as nails Home Secretary is finally going to solve the crisis. I'm going to have a go at the ECHR. We're going to talk about this right to a family life. We're going to talk about this right to not be persecuted in your home country. We're going to tone down those clauses. We're going to work things out. And 2.5 weeks after that, here's the government saying, we don't think we can bring down the numbers of illegal crossings next year. So in other words, the government is fully aware that probably what Shabana Mahmood was up to a couple of weeks ago was purely performative, just announcements to hit the headlines, but they have no expectation that her crackdown will have any effect whatsoever.
I think it's also about the centre of gravity in this government as well, Kevin, which is that, yes, you can do the big announcements for 1 week of a year, but it's about what you do with the other 51 weeks as well. Yeah. And I think there is a danger that some people in the Labour Party certainly do not want this to be their kind of driving force. I mean, it was only just yesterday that we had the news about some of the past comments by the new Equalities and Human Rights Commission chair talking about migration wasn't a threat to this country. Now, if that attitude, which from talking to ministers, they say permeates elements of the civil service and elements of the institutions of this country is elsewhere. I mean, how on earth can Shabana Mahmood, if she is serious and genuine, get anything done in all of this? It's going to be a real problem if they've got people in the Labour Party who just don't get the gravity of it all. And it's no surprise that when you look back on this past year, 2025 has been the year of the insurgent, the year of Reform UK, because it does seem on this issue that Labour has been unable to grasp it. And they've been in office now 18 months. They saw it all play out in opposition for 4 or 5 years, the small boats crisis. There is still that fundamental question about an incentive, and a lot of those measures that Shabana Mahmood has announced, some of them may work, but they're going to be announced about sort of 5-6 months into the year, have another big piece of legislation to get through. All the while, those boats are going to still keep coming across the channel.
Yeah, and unless we, as I was saying, unless we leave the European Convention on Human Rights and get the right to make our own sovereign decisions without being overruled by a Strasbourg court, we can't solve this crisis. Shabana Mahmood, a lawyer, along with the human rights lawyer Prime Minister and the human rights lawyer Attorney General Richard Hermer, all fervently believe in staying in the ECHR. If we don't leave the ECHR, we've got no way of solving this crisis whatsoever. And talking about Mary Ann Stevenson, for that is her name, the new boss of the Equality Commission, there she is, a picture of her if you're watching on TV. When are these people going to learn, James, that they have no right to sit there and tell us what we ought to think, what we must think and what we should not think? We must accept that migration is good for this country. We must stop demonising migrants and so on and so forth. Go to hell, Mary Ann Stevenson, whoever the hell you are. Don't you tell us what to think. Now, she is a Labour appointment. This is classic of Labour, just telling us what to think. Reform are on the rise because for all his many plans and his many diktats and his many announcements, Nigel Farage and his team do not demand that we think in a certain way. They do not tell us what to think. Labour and their acolytes have this habit of telling us what we must think, and people do not like it.
Absolutely, and I think that as well as that kind of sanctimony that you're identifying there, Kevin, there's also that point as well about the authoritarianism, and I think that Labour has certainly allowed their opponents to create the narrative with a lot of the things they've announced in recent months. Obviously the cancelled elections, how they're changing things about press freedom, the gag they've had on military chiefs, scrapping jury duties, ID cards as well. So I do think we're going to see a return of bossy Labour, and that's going to manifest itself in all sorts of ways in 2026, things such as public health orders, some of those social attitudes that you just talked about there, and also the different political measures they're going to do as well. And I think that not all of that is going to be very popular with kind of the voters they need if they are to win re-election in 3 or 4 years' time.
I want to ask you about non-crime hate incidents in just a second, but while you're on, something that was annoying me. James Cleverly was doing the rounds last week after the Prime Minister invited 63 councils to decide on whether or not they'd like to have local elections next May. People say, Labour saying, well, we're just asking them. Well, no, they're basically asking administrations, would you like to be in power next May, or would you like to lose power? We're giving you the opportunity not to have an election so you can stay in power. So they'll all say yes. Now, James Cleverly said, this is an affront to democracy, and the Tory party stands foursquare against this cancellation of the democratic process. Meanwhile, failing to note that quite a few Tory councils are going to take Keir Starmer up on his offer. The Tories have got to get their story straight here, haven't they?
Yeah, totally. I mean, they've got until the 15th of January to work out if they want to have these suspensions or not. I suspect they'll be many more who are considering it, and some of them who will agree with that delay. But you're right, Kevin, which is that the question is one of authority, and this is something Reform UK have identified, which is, does Kevin Bay not have the authority to get her troops in line on this question? And I think that it's right to point to that. And actually, in some ways, this is why Labour's task being made a bit easier cancelling the elections, because they can see they've got the Conservatives, or at least some local Conservatives, backing them. So yes, the party's very much split on this. In Westminster, they're saying, oh no, these should definitely go ahead, these elections. But out in the country, I think a few councillors will be breathing a sigh of relief that it looks like they might be cancelled this year.
Indeed. Non-crime hate incidents. This is on the front of the Daily Telegraph today, saying that police forces around the country, police chiefs, have decided to pretty much get rid of the dreaded saga of non-crime hate incidents. This is where the police bizarrely waste their time recording incidents that are not against the law. God knows why they do this. But if you read the small print of this story, they're not really saying they're going to cancel it. They're just saying they're going to be a little bit more common sense about it and only record the more serious non-crime hate incidents. I think somewhere down the line, police forces have got to be told or somehow prevailed upon to just stop doing this altogether. If there's no law breaking, if there is no crime and non-crime, it is none of the police's business.
Absolutely, and that also makes the law into an ass, in terms of some of these cases we've seen. So Essex police sending around a couple of goons to the columnist Alison Pearson's house, the arrest of Graham Linehan, the comedian, as well. I think that the law is a thing where you need to have that kind of respect and consent to it. And so what we enter in the kind of territory of the NCHIs is this weird world where, as you say, there hasn't been any kind of crime committed, and yet somehow the police are spending time on it. And so there's been a number of information requests, many hundreds of hours have been wasted by police forces on this across the country. And again, Labour talks a good game on some of this stuff, and it sounds great when you read the headline. But as you say, when you dig into the detail, it turns out they're just going to sort of water them down. So I think that would be something for any future kind of centre-right government to look at again. But it doesn't seem we're going to get rid of them anytime soon.
Yeah, exactly right. They've got to go, but they're not going yet. There's just looks as if they might be going, but read the small print and it's not quite the case. What do you make of Labour's? I mean, I've got to say I'm actually in favour of this. Labour are going to ban the boiling of live lobsters in restaurants. A lot of restaurateurs saying, well, this is the last thing we need. We've got enough problems as it is. If you have a machine to stun kill your crustaceans, your lobsters, those machines cost £3,500. But I have to say, as an animal lover, I just don't like the idea of a living creature being chucked into boiling water. So I'm actually with this, although sympathy though I do have for our restaurateurs. Where do you stand on this? What do you think of this as a political announcement?
Well, I think that it's in some ways good politics, a good way to get a whole bunch of animal welfare announcements out before Christmas. I would just say, though, it reminds me of the kind of animal welfare agenda that Boris Johnson had 4 or 5 years ago. A lot of that got held up in red tape, and actually they ran into difficulties. There's a reason why some things, such as for instance, some of the issues around ant farming and trail hunting, and also this lobsters announcement as well, have been held up before. I'll wait to see if some or all of it will happen. I would just make the point, Kevin, I think that lots of people will be on board with this, but for some, they might point to the potential incongruity of what Labour is doing on this compared to other things such as either abortion or also what they're doing in terms of getting the halal meat. There's no transfer restrictions on that.
Exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. They should think that if you're going to, that's a very good point. I mean, halal slaughter involves basically the slitting of the throats of living animals. So if we're going to save crustaceans, lobsters, we should think about halal creatures as well. Good point there, James. And great to speak to you, and a very happy Christmas to you.
James, you too, Kevin.
James Hill, the excellent deputy political editor at The Spectator. Just got time to squeeze in a call from,
undoubtedly this station's very favourite caller, the great Georgina from London. Good morning, Georgina. You are up early. What would you like to say?
I've been up since 5 o'clock, Kevin.
Yeah, well, hey, I've been up since 3:30. I can beat you.
Oh, you beat me. Well, I'm thinking about the chief of the ECHR. He's talking around his hat, Kevin. He doesn't see the dangers of illegal migration, as he's not having to live with the serious ramifications that the problem of bringing men with a backward medieval ideology has on our society. Not only do these people not integrate with our British culture, they're also a serious drain on our now depleted economy. We're not in a financial position to be benevolent, Kevin. We can't even pay the interest on the financial borrowing on the debt that this country already has. We're having to cut corners on the financial help we're giving to our own indigenous dependents, and apparently we haven't got money to maintain a sufficient defence fund, but yet we can keep finding money for third world waifs and strays who are breaking into our country on a daily basis. People who contribute nothing to either our society or our culture. There's no cultural enrichment to be had here. It's only cultural backlash that we're getting. Until this government makes concerted efforts to leave the ECHR and to start to see the serious problems that illegal migration is having on our towns and cities, we're not going to be able to start to put policies in place to stop this pandemic of illegal migrants from breaking into our country. And the problem is only going to exacerbate to biblical proportions, as Labour's not got the political will to stop this.
They have no resolve. What did you make of the new chair of the Equalities Commission, Mary-Ann Stevenson, yesterday, telling us that we must stop acting as if migration is a threat to Britain? A threat to our society. I mean, the thing is, it is a threat, and I think it's a threat. It is posing literally physical danger to the people of this country. And these great and the good, these establishment people who sit there saying, don't be racist, don't demonise these poor migrants. I mean, they're not living in the real world. They're living in Islington and Hampstead, aren't they?
Well, the thing is, Kevin, I don't know where these people have been. Have they been under a rock for the last God knows how long? Because anyone with eyes and half a brain cell can see that this country is going down the toilet. And the main problem we have at the moment is illegal migration, because that affects every aspect of this country's working life. Things are going wrong everywhere. We haven't got the money to keep, carrying these people who are coming over here. We haven't got the cash. And that is, it just affects every part of British life. Every part, because it affects our economy. It affects day-to-day living. You can't walk down the street anymore, Kevin, without seeing a multitude of these people.
It affects safety on the streets. I mean, the tally of convictions and charges for sex offences against asylum seekers around the country rises on a daily basis. These people coming from different cultures with different attitudes to women. That is a clear and present danger. And we have people like Mary-Ann Stevenson telling us, don't think that. Don't believe that. If you believe that, you're being racist. You're demonising migrants. And I think it's a fair point to make that the majority of migrants, the majority of asylum seekers, they may have come here sort of rather on false pretences, but they're not necessarily terrible, bad people. But some of them are. And we're importing them with no questions asked.
Well, Mary-Ann Stevenson needs to wake up and smell the coffee. And why should we take the chance? We've had too many bad experiences, Kevin. We don't want it anymore. The best thing is close our borders. Just get them closed, stop these people coming in, and send the people back who are breaking the laws in our country. They come over here, they've got free rein to do what they want because you know, there's no deterrent. There's no deterrent.
Yeah, well, absolutely none whatsoever. Georgina, great to talk to you. I'm on again tomorrow. I expect you to call again, so I'm not going to wish you a happy Christmas yet. That'll be tomorrow. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Georgina from London there, always making great points and making another great point right there. Next up, I'm going to talk to former Met Police Detective Peter Bleksley. Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, saying that that very Mary Ann Stevenson, the new head of the Equality Commission, telling us what we should think about the migrant crisis. He says her comments are an utter disgrace. I agree with him. We'll talk to Peter Bleksley about that next. And the fact that shoplifters are getting away with nicking something every single minute of every single day. Unbelievable. We'll talk about, well, believable, let's face it, but shoplifting is no longer a crime, is it? 0344 499 1000. Peter Bleksley next. Stay tuned.
I was sat in the tent and he was showing me through photos of his phone, scrolling through. This was barbaric, horrific stuff. Blokes going through walls in vehicles and then jumping out and shooting everyone. His WhatsApp picture was him with a mask on, with a gun like that.
You're in a tent with this guy?
I'm in a tent with this guy, and actually he was just showing me this stuff. I'm just thinking, this is not the kind of bloke you want to be coming to the UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Warm welcome to the show to former Met Police Detective Peter Bleksley. Morning, Pete.
Good morning.
First up, let's talk about a story that broke yesterday. This is Mary Ann Stevenson. She's the new chair of the Equality and Human Rights Commission. She said yesterday, she criticised this, the creating of this idea that migration causes huge risks for the country. Chris Philp, the Tory Shadow Home Secretary, accused her of dismissing legitimate concerns about migration, and he said that her comments were a disgrace. I agree with Philp. I'm so sick of people like Mary Ann Stevenson telling people like me and you and everybody, all of our audience, what to think about the migrant crisis. We can make up our own mind, Miss Stevenson, thank you very much. And I say, I don't know what you say, Pete, but I say the migrant crisis does present a serious threat to British life.
I have one name to mention to Mary Ann Stevenson, a young woman, a mother, hard-working, contributing to Britain, very much a part of Alarm Clock Britain, who went to work in a migrant hotel. And as she made her way to the railway station to go home to care for her child, rest before going back to work the following day, she was brutally murdered by a migrant from the very same hotel. Her name is Rhiannon White. And the man who murdered her came to the UK illegally on a dinghy, and with no thought whatsoever, with no ounce of humanity in his soul, he snuffed out a beautiful young life. Mary Ann Stevenson, there's one of many, many examples I could put to you. These illegal migrants flooding into the UK, over 2,000 of them in just the past few days, are very much a threat to British life. She is wrong, and I won't be told what to do or what to say by any lunatic lefty.
Absolutely, absolutely. Stop telling us what to do, what to think, what to say. Sick of it, sick of it. Mary Ann Stevenson, find out about real life sometime, will you? She is, of course, a Labour appointment to the Equalities Commission, spewing Labour claptrap. Now, Pete, before we move on, I want to ask you about shoplifting, which is going from bad to worse. But you'll know something about this. A story on the front page of The Sun today. Great story, great exclusive, that the police have seized Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's gun licence. He's no longer got a full shooting licence. Now, if you read the story, it's hard to work out exactly why they've taken this away from him. He's been at the centre of a police investigation, accused of wrongly abusing his position to get one of his Royal Protection officers to try and investigate Virginia Giuffre, the woman, the late lady who accused him of sexually abusing her on 3 continents. He denies that, of course. So he was under investigation. Apparently people under investigation often have their gun licences reviewed. He's also about to move home, obviously from Windsor Great Park Royal Lodge up to Sandringham. People moving home have their licences reviewed. But it's hard to see exactly. Have you got any idea why it would be that the police would revoke Andrew's gun licence?
I don't know the exact reasons why this has been done, but to own a firearm in the UK is very much a privilege and not a right, and it is, of course, subject to stringent checks being made before any licence is issued. Stringent checks around somebody's mental well-being, stringent checks around somebody's home circumstances, because these weapons have to be kept in the most secure situation, in locked cabinets that can't be lifted and moved by a burglar, for example. I doubt Andrew Mountbatten Windsor lives in too much fear of being burgled, but I use that just as an example. It is only right if somebody, anybody, is under a lot of pressure, has a lot of trauma in their life, and maybe perhaps having their mental state affected by, let's say, being made homeless, for example, being on the front page of the newspapers on a very regular basis, a senior police officer may have made the decision to revoke or suspend that licence. And I think that is probably an eminently sensible decision.
Indeed. Still with crime, shoplifters. This is a big story that broke yesterday, but it'd be good to get your take on it, Pete. Shoplifters are getting away with stealing something every single minute of every single day. This has become an epidemic. We know what's going on. A lot of security staff at shops are told, do not intervene. These shoplifters could be dangerous. They may have weapons. So you get security staff just watching people walking out with stuff, people walking into shops, stealing what they like, walking out, no chance of the police getting involved. Shoplifting has become a sort of legal crime with no punishment. You can get away with it with impunity. Look at this graph, the way shoplifting has shot to 530,643 incidents this year, up from 300,000 in 2022, and getting worse and worse and worse. What can we do about this, Pete?
These are only the reported crimes. Unfortunately, the situation is far worse than this, because many shopkeepers are subject to shoplifting and they simply don't report it, because if they do, they know it's unlikely that the police will turn up, and even if they then go online and report it, that anything will be done about it. It is a free-for-all. It is an absolute epidemic of gargantuan proportions. And the blame for this lies squarely with the police. In 2014, the Police Crime and Sentencing Bill was passed, and what that did was it said that any crime of theft of a value below £200 will not be tried at the Crown Court. The police took that basically as an excuse not to investigate anything below £200, coupled with the fact that senior police officers have taken bobbies from the beat. Police officers extremely rarely now patrol on foot. You surrender the streets, and who takes over? The criminals. And that's exactly what has happened. The criminals now rule the streets of Britain. And this is evidenced quite clearly, not only in a shoplifting epidemic, but knife crime going through the roof, and a lot of other lawlessness, from antisocial behaviour to murder. The police have to get a grip and have to realise that bobbies on the beat is not an outdated, old-fashioned concept. It is very, very relevant. And I do understand that police now have to investigate more crime that is committed behind closed doors than we did in my day, but that is not an excuse to surrender the streets. There is so much public disquiet over this shoplifting, over this increasing sense of lawlessness in this once great nation, that people are sick to the back teeth of it. They do not trust politicians, they do not trust police, and we are now a low trust society. And in low trust societies, very bad things happen.
And they are happening, Pete. Listen, Pete, thank you once again for a brilliant contribution. And while I've got you, in case I don't speak to you again, very happy Christmas to you. And thank you very, very much for all the fantastic contributions you've made, not only to my show, but every show on Talk. So all the best, Peter Blexley. Take care, mate. That's Peter Blexley, former Met Police detective. Basically, it's not just shoplifting, isn't it? Lawless society. The coppers just, just deciding all these, oh, they're beneath us, we won't bother with that. Oh, car theft, bicycle theft, burglary, shoplifting, the more they do this, the worse it's going to get. We need coppers who are going to investigate law breaking, not tolerate law breaking. Yes, 0344 499 1000. When we come back, we're going to speak to economist Liam Halligan about the fact that we've got less disposable income since before the pandemic. We are in big trouble, folks. I want to talk to Liam about that, and also the fact that the boss of Motability, Andrew Miller, is now getting £924,000 a year for handing out free cars on welfare. Good, isn't it? That next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's talk about the economy. Let's talk about people earning astronomical salaries. Talking of people who earn an astronomical salary, it's the very highly paid economist, Telegraph columnist, podcaster, Liam Halligan. Hi, Liam.
Hi, Kevin. Good morning.
How are you doing? Now, first of all...
You're unusually misinformed about that.
Well, I'm just about awake. You'll be more awake than I am. What does this mean? You have to explain all this to me. Household disposable income has slumped to its lowest level since before the pandemic after repeated tax raids by Rachel Reeves. What's going on, Liam?
Well, there's a measure called RHDI. Economists call it RHDI. It sounds like... a dodgy disease, doesn't it? It's actually real household disposable income, and it's your income from wages and benefits minus taxation and allowing for inflation. And in the 3 months to September, RHDI during those 3 months, across those 3 months, was £6,315, and that's down, allowing for inflation after taxation, from £3,677 at the end of 2019. It's only down by a slither of 1%, but it's still down, and that sort of goes against our natural view of progress. We generally feel that, you know, we should be getting wealthier, we should be making progress as a society, people should be feeling better off. But people, if they're feeling worse off than before the pandemic, Kevin, that's because they are. A big reason is inflation. The fact that we've had a lot of inflation after the pandemic. We had inflation up at 11.1% in the autumn of 2022, and it stayed really high for quite a few years. And it's still, you know, above 3%, which is unusual across the Western world. We are an inflation outlier now, and wages aren't going up fast enough in order to counter that inflation. And that is why we all feel worse off.
Now, overarching question, Liam, as we go into 2026, how much trouble are we in economically? How bleak is the picture, or are there any reasons for optimism?
There are always reasons for optimism because this is the UK and we are full of entrepreneurial people, and we've got a lot of kind of drive when it comes to pushing our economy forward. And I'm not talking about the political media class, I'm talking about ordinary folk, you know, ordinary folk who are listening to talk now early in the morning just before Christmas because they're still out at work doing a shift in order to get that little bit of extra money, get that overtime in order to try and keep their businesses running. Having said that, there is, you know, this is a very, very slow Christmas. Business and consumer sentiment is very much deflated. There is a sense that the government's taxing a lot more because it is, but it's going to continue taxing a lot more because that's the only answer it has ideologically. The Labour government seems to think that growth comes from borrowing money, spending money on public sector workers, tens of thousands more public sector workers under Labour. Civil service continues to expand. And if you spend lots of public sector money and you borrow lots of public sector money, that means you end up taxing more in order to pay the interest on that borrowing. And that's where we are. You know, some people have been talking over this year that there may be some kind of, you know, financial crisis because the government borrowing is so high, the debt interest payments are so high that in the end the tax base won't be able to keep up. I don't think that's complete hyperbole. I do think, without wishing to be overly negative, that's a possibility. And a lot of people, you know, look at financial markets, you look at the cost of government borrowing on financial markets, what we call the so-called gilt yield, when that's the amount of money the government must pay in order to borrow. That yield's been going up, Kevin, pretty relentlessly. And the really worrying thing for me, I don't want it to sound overly technical, but your viewers and listeners know that the Bank of England cut interest rates last week. Policy rates are down from 5.25 all the way down to 3 3/4. That's a big drop. And yet during that period, Kevin, when the Bank of England's mood music has been, we're lowering interest rates because we think there's going to be less inflation and all of you should follow too. In financial markets, where money is actually bought and sold, if you like, where real borrowing costs are set, those costs of borrowing have been going up, despite what the Bank of England has been saying about inflation coming down. So clearly, the weight of money in financial markets, they don't believe the Bank of England. They don't believe the government is going to get the economy moving and get growth going. They don't believe inflation is going to come down. And when sort of business leaders and investors, traders, what they think basically becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And this is the danger that we face. And the more inflation we get, then the harder it is going to be for businesses to make investments and give decent wage awards. And the more households are going to feel, as a lot of us have felt over this last year, Kevin, and for a few years now, a sort of slight sluggishness in the economy. There's a sense that the animal spirits of the economy are dulled. People don't want to invest. They don't want to take risks. They don't want to push themselves because they're worried about the future.
Absolutely. Now, I think everything you're talking about is due to the fact that the last budget, Rachel Reeves' second budget from hell, just enshrined the obvious truth. Be around the welfare state. So I want to ask you about this guy, Andrew Miller. He's the chief executive of the Motability Scheme. That is the scheme that hands free cars to people who are disabled, that kind of thing. I've got no problem with handing free cars to people who are disabled. I have a bit of a problem with handing free cars to people who say they've got anxiety or depression, or mental health issues. I'm not sure why that warrants a free car from the government, but it does. So get into the welfare business, as Andrew Miller did, the chief executive of Motability. And as such, this scheme, extraordinarily, buys 1 in 5 of every new car in this country. 1/5 of all cars in this country are bought by the Motability Scheme to hand out to people on welfare. And Andrew Miller, is doing very well. He's just got a 20% pay rise. He's now going to get £924,000 a year. And this is after his scheme, the Motability Scheme, has received £3 billion worth of taxpayer money. So if you want to make money, if you want to do well, key into the welfare system. But this guy's pay rise, £924,000 a year for giving out free cars on welfare, I don't know. Good luck to him, but it doesn't sit well with me. What do you think about this?
Well, the Motability Scheme is one of those, well-intentioned state-run schemes that's gone completely out of control and is now nothing short of a racket. And for any person closely associated with a scheme essentially funded by state money to be trousering £1 million is grotesque. I'm sure Andrew Miller would deny that were he here, but that is my opinion, Your Honour. It's grotesque. And an awful lot of people this Christmas, this is a tough Christmas, Kevin. A lot of families are only buying presents for the kids. There's a lot of Secret Santa that will be going on over the next 24 to 48 hours because there isn't the money for the annual splurge on presents. A lot of people are seeing their shopping bills go through the roof. They will feel that this is outrageous. And Rachel Reeves, this is only a Labour thing. This has been around for a long time. But as ever, state workers get a cushier ride under Labour. State schemes tend to expand under Labour. Public sector wages tend to go up much faster than private sector wages under Labour. We saw that in figures which came out last week. Why? Because Labour likes to create client voters who rely on the state for their money because then they keep voting Labour. Yeah. That's the way the argument goes, which keeps these people in power. That is absolutely not the way to run an economy, and it's the road to perdition, if you like. Why? Because in the end, you run out of other people's money, and in the end, financial markets say, we're not going to lend you money anymore, certainly not unless we charge you absolutely extortionate interest rates, because we don't believe you anymore. We don't believe you can make the sums add up, and we think your actions are ultimately going to lead to more price pressures, more inflation, and more undermining of ordinary household income. One final thought, Kevin, on that RDHI, that sort of dodgy disease acronym I mentioned, real household disposable income. It is partly about Labour's higher taxes, but this has been going on for a long long time. It's the freezing of those tax thresholds rather than the increase in headline rates of income tax. Both the Tories and now Labour have frozen those tax thresholds where you start paying tax at about 12.5 grand. That hasn't gone up with inflation. More and more and more and more people are being dragged into paying tax. More and more and more people with middle incomes, mid-ranking teachers, doctors, mid-ranking teachers, nurses, and so on, people who aren't wealthy are now paying tax at the higher rate at 40%, plus NIC, national insurance contributions on top of that, plus their employers are paying higher national insurance contributions. In the end, if you keep taxing, you will gum up the economy and enterprise will be thwarted. That started under the Tories, it was accelerated by COVID, and under Labour it's continued even more. And in the end, as Winston Churchill said, a man trying to tax his way to prosperity is like a man standing in a bucket, Kevin, trying to lift himself up. It didn't work then, it doesn't work now.
Yeah, that is a good analogy for the Labour government right now. Liam, thanks for all your brilliant contributions over the year. Good to see you last week and have a great Christmas. The brilliant Liam Halligan there, economist, Telegraph columnist, podcaster, all-round good guy, and really knows his stuff. I mean, not a happy prediction for next year, but you knew that anyway, didn't you? I mean, this government... you got less money to spend and less reason to be optimistic. 0344 499 1000. It being Christmas, we need to get Simon Calder on, don't we, to talk about Christmas travel chaos. That next. Stay tuned.
The Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. Watching and listening to Talk just got easier. There's now only one place for the home of common sense. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. As I said, it is Christmas, therefore it's Christmas chaos, isn't it? Christmas travel chaos. Let's get a roundup of what's going wrong this year with the world's greatest travel correspondent, The Independent's excellent Simon Calder. Good morning, Simon.
Good morning, Kevin. Actually, I've seen the producer's notes, and it just says cheap and available next to my name.
Yeah, it does
and I
say,
think
it does
also
say
next
that.
to yours. Yeah.
It does say that. Are you at Euston Station? Have I got that
I'm
right?
at Euston
I can
Station.
recognise that. Yes.
Well, yeah. Not everybody's favourite London station, one of the top 10 busiest in the country, but actually things not going at all badly today. I can tell you where they're not going well. That is Birmingham New Street, another top station for an awful lot of travellers. The cross-country network, which runs trains between England, Wales and Scotland through that hub, well, they have dozens of cancellations and curtailments again today. That's due to a range of factors, including a shortage of train crew, and they warn that is going to continue tomorrow. Elsewhere on the railways, biggest problems between Oxford and Worcester through the Cotswolds there. And also London Waterloo to Exeter. This is the kind of pretty way to the Devon, and that line has got at least 10 cancellations due to a shortage of working trains. So there we are. This is recently nationalised, Kevin, and it's not going entirely as well as it might.
How about that? What a turn up for the books. But I mean, this is these problems on the railways, as I understand it. I didn't realise that they were having mechanical problems, but there's a lot of sickness at the moment, obviously presumably due to this super flu and the bugs going around. That's at the root of the railway problems, isn't it?
Well, cross-country, there's talk about other things being responsible, like, poor morale and so on. But ultimately, the government came in and said 18 months ago, the trains are all going to be sorted out. And I think while there certainly have been some improvements, the kind of core issues are not resolved. Anyway, if you want to use Euston Station, hurry up, because like so many other parts of the network, it will close down mid-evening tomorrow night. Make sure if you're travelling on Christmas Eve, you can get to your destination. Then most lines won't open until Saturday, the 27th, but on the West Coast main line from here, there will be massive disruption right through to the 14th of January. So check your journey before you travel.
So, and why massive problems on the West?
Okay, because Network Rail is going to be doing lots of renewal work between Rugby and Milton Keynes, and also in the northwest, stretching up as far actually as Gretna Green on the West Coast main line. They say we've got to do engineering work at this time of year because it affects the lowest number of people. That may still be the case, but actually what it does is it convinces anybody who is only a rare user of the railways that they never actually properly work. So if you can just plan ahead and find an alternative way round. I'm going to be in the Lakes, and I'm coming back via Bradford of all places because I've got to get across to the East Coast main line.
So if you're planning to elope to Gretna Green, check the railways because you could be in trouble. There you go. Now, what about the airports, Simon? How are they looking?
Well, things have been, and I'm touching wood here, they have been pretty calm, actually, Kevin. There's the usual, occasional delay and so on, but they're mostly caused by bad weather elsewhere. We've had thousands of people stranded trying to get to Australia, Africa and Asia because of problems at Dubai a couple of nights ago. We've also had the occasional mechanical cancellation, people due to get back on British Airways this morning from Sydney and Singapore. Their flight was cancelled outbound because of mechanical problems. But honestly, we're talking about air disruption that basically kind of is one out of 10 on the Calder scale of disruption. We're nowhere near, and you might remember, I know you're a very young man, but the drone disruption 7 years ago at Gatwick.
I do remember that,
yes. Wiped out days of flying, 1,000 flights cancelled, 150,000 having their journeys ruined. So by comparison, today is, and hopefully this will continue. Tell you what, one interesting thing, Christmas Day, there are going to be more flights than ever before from British airports, up 10% on last year, up 1/3 on pre-pandemic levels. Everyone's clocked on to the fact that actually it's a really good time to fly. That's because you're going to have nice empty airports. You're going to have lower fares because lots of people don't want to fly on Christmas Day.
That's a very good good thought. And going forward, Heathrow Airport in the week after Christmas, will that be okay? I'm asking for a friend.
OK, anybody, all of your friends, on the 28th of December, that's what I'm looking at as absolute peak day. Yeah. So that's the Sunday after Christmas. Yeah. I've talked to lots of airports. Heathrow, I think, probably had its busiest day last Friday. So it's not going to be too bad. But Sunday the 28th is the day where if you're going to have problems, leaving, that's going to be it. And then coming back, you're looking at really the weekend of the 2nd, 3rd, 4th of January, just in case your friend is coming back then.
Yes, my friend will be coming back round about then. My imaginary friend. It's actually me. Going forward, let me ask you this, Simon, for 2026, any big travel stories to look out for? Any lines, railway lines cancelled or airlines in trouble?
I tell you what it's going to be, Kevin, and it's been a little bit quiet. The EU entry-exit system, where you get fingerprinted and photographed going into Europe. Some of your viewers and listeners, that will already have happened to. Most it won't. It's supposed to be fully up and running within 4 months. And personally, I can't see that happening. I'm seeing problems across Europe. I hope I'm wrong, but digital borders in the EU, that I think is going to be something that you and I may well talk about.
OK, Simon, we better watch out for that. And thank you for our traditional Christmas chaos travel review. Doesn't sound too bad not on the colder scale. I'd say around about 4 altogether. So that's good news. Simon, thanks for all your brilliant work this year on behalf of all of us at Talk, and a very happy Christmas to you. The amazing Simon Calder there at Euston Station. I recognise that. Now, coming back, we are going to be talking to Mike Neville, the former Met Police detective, another one, after the 8 o'clock news. And later on, we're going to be talking to Tony Smith. He's got a piece in The Sun. He's a former border force chief. He's got a piece in The Sun today saying that basically Labour has no idea how to solve this migrant crisis. Tell us something we don't know, but it's a very good piece. So we'll talk to Tony about his thoughts, a man who knows about the migrant crisis, unlike the Labour government, which doesn't seem to know a damn thing about it. So after the break, Mike Neville and then Tony Smith later on. And going forward, we have 2 hours still to go. Is that right? Yeah, 2 hours of this fabulous show. So stay tuned. We have much still to come.
This journey of me following the migrants went from sort of 10 in the morning, all around the clock, to late at night, to the point where, on buses, on trains, through streets, at every key point, French military police and the French police, they were there. They were on the bus, taking down notes, taking pictures, but not doing anything to deter the migrants or stop them, just being there. I was sat in the tent and he was showing me through photos of his phone, scrolling through. This was barbaric, horrific stuff. Blokes going through walls in vehicles and then jumping out and shooting everyone. His WhatsApp picture was him with a mask on, with a gun like that.
You're in a tent with this guy.
I'm in a tent with this guy, and actually he's just showing me this stuff. I'm just thinking, this is not the kind of bloke you want to be coming to the UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back here. In about 20 minutes, the former chief of the Border Force, Tony Smith, who's got a powerful piece in today's Sun newspaper, will join us with his thoughts on Labour's obvious, palpable inability to solve the migrant crisis. They've said, oh, I don't expect the numbers to come down next year, 2026. Oh, that's good, isn't it? More than 41,000, still 2 weeks to go this year. So we'll probably end up with about 45,000 in a year coming across the channel illegally. And Labour is saying, don't expect the number to come down. Great. We'll talk to Tony Smith later on in about 20 minutes. But in the meantime, we'll take some of your calls. Get your calls coming in. 0344 499 1000. About time we all had a chat. Give me a call. Let's talk. It's good to talk on Talk. 0344 499 1000. But for the next 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes, let's speak to retired Scotland Yard detective Mike Neville's going to join us in just a second. We're going to talk about non-crime hate incidents, the dreaded non-crime hate incidents, which the police are now saying, well, at first we thought, oh, they're going to be scrapped. They're going to be scrapped. But it doesn't look as if they are. When are they going to stop doing this? Why do the police waste our time and their time with non-crimes? If it's not a crime, what has it got to do with the police? They're supposed to be recording crimes, not recording non-crimes. Why do they do this? Why do they spend so much time doing it? And why won't they stop doing it? There's an announcement or there's a semi-announcement in today's Telegraph saying non-crime hate to be scrapped, but it's not to be scrapped. First of all, the cops are just saying they're going to present it to the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, so she hasn't made her decision yet. And then they just say, well, we're thinking of reducing the number of non-crime hate incidents we record. No, don't reduce them. Get rid of them entirely. I also want to talk to Mike about his thoughts about what Mary-Ann Stevenson, the new chair of the Equalities Commission, said yesterday, that migration is not a threat to us. We've got to stop acting as if illegal migration is a threat to us. Is it a threat? I think it is a threat, the crime threat to us. What do you think? 0344 499 1000. In the meantime, we're also going to talk about shoplifting. Shoplifting. Apparently, there's a shoplifting incident every minute, every single minute of every single day, and the police do nothing about it. So, what are we going to do about that? 530,643. Shoplifting incidents this year, 530,643. That is quite a thing, I think you'll admit. And as Peter Blexley said earlier, those are just the recorded incidents. Mostly shops just don't bother reporting shoplifting anymore because they know the police are going to do nothing about it. So 540,000 officially, how many unofficially? On and on it goes. Let's take a call, shall we? Let's talk. We're just waiting for Mike Neville to get on the phone now, so we'll get hold of him as soon as we can. Let's talk to Chris in Epsom. Hi, Chris. What would you like to say?
Morning, Kevin.
Hello, mate. All right.
I was listening to you and Charlie earlier. Merry Christmas to you and Charlie. Oh, Charlie's gone now, but if he's still listening, and all the rest of the team as well.
Oh, thank you, Chris. Thank you very much. Same to you. Very happy Christmas. What do you make? You want to talk about the migrant crisis?
Yeah.
What would you like to say?
This really is not something that can just be scorned at, that, oh, it's a different party, that this is, laughed at, or it's incompetence. We now have 45,000 people on the watch list, 3,000 on the 24-hour watch list, which is complete physical and data surveillance. That means live surveillance. We have over 100,000 illegals that are broke into this country, and we don't know who they are or what their intentions are. Now, we've got a welfare bill that cannot be carried by the working population of the indigenous population. All right?
Hang on, so what did you say there? We have a working what?
We have a welfare bill.
Oh, yeah.
That cannot be carried by the working indigenous population of this country.
Well, when you say that, it can be. We're just being taxed to the hilt. We can. We're having to pay for it. We have to pay through the nose for it by very high taxes. But sadly, we can afford it. We are affording it. We're being made to afford it.
No, Kevin, we're being made to afford it, while the rest of we're giving it away while our lives go back.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that, but...
okay, well, that's the point once we can't afford it. Charity begins at home until you can look after your own, and then you can start looking to spread out. And the thing is that them saying that they can't see the numbers going down next year is just disgusting.
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah.
If they had a backbone, it could be done legally, all right? Now, Giorgia Meloni in Italy has pushed 20,000 immigrants back through Ventimiglia, all right? She's taken on...
she's having some. She's also done a deal with Libya, so Libya are getting a load of euros from Italy to turn the boats around in the Mediterranean. So in the end, her policy is succeeding because she's got a turn the boats round thing going on. That's something that we don't seem to be prepared to even contemplate.
Well, now that's the thing, you see, Kevin, because it can be done. And it's being done legally. Under international maritime law, when another ship or boat at sea sees somebody in trouble, all right, and that can be dangerous overloading, all right, which all those things are, it is legal and a requirement for you to go and offer assistance. It is also a requirement...
Yeah, but I mean, it's all very well to say this, Chris, but we're not going to do it, are we?
Well, that's what I'm saying. We haven't got any backbone. So
I mean, all of this is just saloon bar talk. It doesn't mean anything because the government's not going to do it. They're just not going to do it.
It's not.
Well, it is because they're not going to do it. They're just not going to do it.
No, that's because
it's like saying, "Oh, well, let's bring in the Navy." They're not going to do it.
Well, you just lay down and let them walk all over you.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying it's a fact. I mean, that's what they're going to do. I mean, we can, people like you and me can scream from the rooftops. The government's not going to do anything about it because they've got no resolve.
It needs to be said, though, Kevin, because...
I agree. I'm not saying we shouldn't say it, Chris, but the frustration is that this government will never listen to people like you and me.
Right, let me say this, right? Please don't talk over me for a sec.
Well, hang on a second, Chris. I've got a show to do. You know, I've got a guest waiting. Very quickly, say what you're going to say. Go on.
If we do not tell people that is the situation with maritime law and our government are ignoring it.
Yeah. Well, again, government, this is a maritime law. They're not going to do anything about it. So we can scream from the rooftops, but it's pointless because they're not going to do anything. They're not going to go on about maritime law. This government will never, ever, ever, ever even think about turning the boats round.
Yes, correct. But we need to be shouting it from the rooftops.
Yeah, but okay, but we can carry on doing that. But we're just shouting into the abyss with this government, which is frustrating.
If we don't inform the public that that can be done, then they won't vote another way.
Well, I think they won't vote for Labour again anyway. I mean, I take your point, Chris. Don't get me wrong. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm on the same side as you. I'm just saying there's a real frustration insofar as this government will never listen to people like you and me. It'll never listen to the very idea that these boats could be turned around, because they never will do it. That's just the way they are. Just like they won't leave the ECHR. Chris, I've got to go, mate. Thank you for ringing. Always good to talk to you. Happy Christmas. Chris in Epsom. Let's go straight over to former Met Police Detective Mike Neville. Morning, Mike.
Yeah, good morning, Kevin. Merry Christmas.
And to you, thanks for coming on board. And now, let me ask you, Mary Ann Stevenson, the new chair of the Equalities Commission here in Britain, yesterday informed us that we were wrong. We've got to stop acting as if mass migration into this country is a threat to this country. Now, I look at the crime statistics, and I certainly would not want to demonise every asylum seeker, every migrant who arrives in this country legally or illegally. I wouldn't want to say they're all potential criminals, they're all rapists, they're all murderers. That would be stupid to say that. But I think if you look at the crime statistics among asylum seekers in this country, particularly sex offences, to say that migration presents no threat to this country is shockingly inaccurate, isn't it?
Of course it's shockingly inaccurate, Kevin. But of course this is a woman who has a PhD in equality law. That is the sort of person you're dealing with. You're dealing with the sort of person whose feelings matter more than facts. You're dealing with a person who looks and acts like an NHS manager. The video you're showing, the only thing I'm surprised she's not wearing is a rainbow lanyard. She's literally a clone from the establishment. She would talk to you and do that awful smile these people do when they think they're cleverer than we are. And to these people, they're a cult. They are absolutely committed to the cult of multiculturalism, and they'll do all in their power to have that. Over the past, it's only in the last few years, I was discussing this the other day, that we've been allowed to know these crime figures. For the last 20 or 30 years, and I studied this as a young police officer, the amount of crime committed by ethnicity. It was deemed to be racist to bring this up, to discuss this. And really, talk is one of the places that's allowed this to happen, to have this freedom to know these things. And she would rather have it that we didn't know it. But I think it just demonstrates, your last caller's frustration with all this. It demonstrates what this government thinks of us. It thinks me, you, and the caller, we're all wickedly racist. And it appoints somebody who believes that as well to be the head of this foreign court, the representative of this foreign court in this great nation. We should have no foreign judges should ever have a say in this nation. It's a scandal.
And in particular, Mike, again, I don't want to besmirch all migrants, all asylum seekers, but we have to note that the statistics concerning sex offences among asylum seekers are a source of some concern, I would say. And more of these migrants who are convicted of rape, sexual assault and various other sex offences, their defences, well, I come from a country, from a culture where we have a different attitude to women. I didn't realise that it was regarded as such a bad thing over here to rape a woman. More and more that is their defence. So among other crimes that we have to worry about with these people, sex offences are looming large. There is a big problem, isn't there?
There is, and we know through the statistics that Afghanis, for example, are 20 times more likely to commit sex offences than an average Briton. And on a very personal basis, you know, my young daughters live near Bournemouth, and I had to speak to them about strange men in the town. We've seen the reports of Bournemouth, 3 migration hotels. You've had the public have to form their own safeguard force to sort of keep the place safe. When you have to speak to your daughter about Bournemouth, which is a quintessential English seaside town, about strange men who might sexually assault you, that is really bad, Kevin. And my experience is mirrored by lots of people. And what's really changing is that, you know, I've said this many times, that in the past, these have been inner city problems, and people have been able to look at them and judge and say, oh, the police are racist for doing all this and all the whatever. People are wicked and evil who question it. But now you've got this in Bournemouth and Crowborough and Epping and lots of little nice places, and everybody in the country is now seeing that this migration is really a big problem. And then, as you say, we have a government appointee who tells us, oh, you've nothing to worry about. This is a wonderful thing, and perpetuates this myth that everybody on that boat is a doctor or an engineer coming to save us. It's utter nonsense.
Exactly. Don't demonise the migrants, she said. Well, I think we do have to be careful about that, but there's the idea that migration presents no threat to this country whatsoever, in terms of basic safety on the streets, is an utter nonsense, a shocking nonsense for someone.
Kevin, you wouldn't let somebody in your house who you didn't know, would you? If somebody came towards your house and threw away their papers and said, oh, can I come in? You'd say, no, you're not coming in my house. I don't know. I've got 2 young daughters here. I don't know who you are. And so why, if we wouldn't let them in our house, why would we let them in the nation? It's utterly scandalous.
Exactly right. Front page of the Telegraph today, and might non-crime hate to be scrapped? Sounds good for a while. Non-crime hate incidents are to be scrapped under plans that police chiefs will present to the Home Secretary next month. Well, first of all, that will need her approval, so I wouldn't go running away with the fact that this is going to happen. And secondly, when you read into the story, what they're actually saying is there'll be a new common sense approach, so essentially fewer non-crime hate incidents will be recorded, but they will continue the practice. When are these police forces going to get the memo and actually read it? If it's not a crime, it's got nothing to do with you. Why are they intent on continuing this nonsense, Mike? It's been going on, I didn't realise, it's been going on since 1999, more than a quarter of a century of wasting the police time. The police wasting their time, wasting our time, wasting taxpayers' money on something that should not concern them. If it's not a crime, it's not police business, is it?
Absolutely. And what happened there, you said about 99, that's the McPherson report after Stephen Lawrence, where the dreadful murder of Stephen Lawrence, well, that was used to bring in all sorts of ridiculous things. So the Labour government at the time brought in a rule that it was a racist incident if somebody perceived it to be. So this country's always bad evidence-based facts in court. It's nothing to do with your feelings, it's to do with facts. That all changed, and it became this feelings-based thing. Oh, I thought it was racist. So you've got people, reporting an aggressive haircut because they thought it was a foreigner. Somebody who hung up their dirty underpants on the line.
What about this one? My favourite, this poor little 9-year-old is on official police records and a non-crime hate incident. A 9-year-old for calling a classmate a retard.
Yeah, they're all ridiculous. But the thing is, these have real world impacts. You know, somebody goes to be a scout leader or a teacher or whatever. They do the DBS check, and they get ruined. They can't do it. You've seen how this is weaponised with or safeguarding. You saw the ex-Marine who was he was found not guilty of it by a jury of using racist language and on a Facebook post, and then the local Labour authority stop him from teaching kids football under a DBS check. So all these things can be weaponised by the left. You ask why it's carrying on, it's because a lot of the senior officers are part of that woke establishment. And I wouldn't mind, we've got 1% of thefts being solved, 5% of burglaries. If they were solving 99% of theft and all the burglaries, you think, well, the police haven't got much to do. They can really focus on people being nice to each other. But they haven't got that focus. And hopefully now the focus will go back to catching criminals. But do you know what, Kevin? I think their common sense and our common sense aren't the same thing.
Exactly right, Mike. Listen, Mike, personal thanks to you for all your fantastic contributions through the year to my shows and every other show on this channel. And a very happy Christmas to you and yours. The great Mike Neville, their retired Scotland Yard detective. What do you think about what he's saying? I mean, it is true. The migrant crisis, this Mary Ann Stevenson, no, there's no threat. It's no threat to us. It is a threat to us. It's becoming a clear and present dangerous threat to safety on the streets. Women are getting raped. Kids are getting harmed. People are getting harmed. How dare she say that? How dare she tell us what to think? 0344 499 1000. When we come back, he's got a great piece, great column in The Sun today. Former head of the UK Border Force, Tony Smith, about how the boats will just keep on coming unless we urgently reform our immigration laws. He's right, isn't he? Tony Smith next.
This journey of me following the migrants went from sort of 10 in the morning, all around the clock, to late at night, to the point where, on buses, on trains, through streets, at every key point, French military police and the French police, they were there. They were on the bus, taking down notes, taking pictures, but not doing anything to deter the migrants or stop them, just being there.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Quick text from Sarah. She said, I asked her earlier, who's awake then? And Sarah said, I'm up and awake. I work 7 days a week and tune in to Talk. Well done, Sarah. She said, it's been lovely waking up to you, Kevin. You're a lot calmer in the mornings. Love your shows. Thank you, Sarah. I think when you say a lot calmer in the mornings, I think the word you're looking for is a lot tireder. But as the morning goes on, I get more and more furious and more angry. So Sarah wishes us all a Merry Christmas here at Talk. Sarah, Merry Christmas to you as well. Thank you for your very nice message. Let's go on to our next guest now. Let's talk about his column in today's Sun. Here it is. Page 10, 41,400, why Labour still doesn't have a clue how to stop the dinghies. For ex-Director General of the UK Border Force, regular guest here on Talk, Tony Smith. Welcome, Tony.
Morning, Kevin.
Yeah, well, you basically say, well, Labour still doesn't have a clue in how to stop the dinghies because instead of deterrence, all we offer is enticements. I mean, the madness of our system continues to be off the scale. The French look across the English Channel and they say, well, you ask us to stop these boats coming across. You ask us to patrol our beaches. Meanwhile, you're essentially saying to these migrants, get across the channel, we'll put you in a 4-star hotel, give you 50 quid a week, free food, free dentists, free doctors, free everything. We have only encouragements. It's insane, isn't it?
Yeah, Kevin, it's end of year review time, isn't it? It's annual report time. We used to have that in the Border Force. We've got to do that on the government, on their policies. And as I say, 41,500 is going to be the outcome unless we get even more in the next week or so, which is the second highest on record. It's been creeping up for the last couple of years. It's time for us to look at the policies. They've been in power now for 18 months. They said they were going to smash the gangs, presumably with the intention of at least slowing down, if not stopping the boats. And then we've had a raft of announcements, haven't we, this year on things they were going to do, things the French were going to do, things they're planning to do. But it's pretty clear from the figures, which speak for themselves, that there is no deterrent, really. The migrants are still flocking to northern France, still waiting for a weather break to get into one of those dinghies to get across here. And they know full well, Kevin, that once they do get into British territorial waters, under the current legal frameworks that we have, it's very likely they're going to be allowed to stay in this country because they can claim asylum or apply for human rights or modern slavery, all of which trumps border control. It means the Border Force have no option but to bring them ashore for those processes to unwind. And that is the problem. You're right. We need a deterrent. We need to say get in the minds of the migrants, what is it, if you were a migrant, that would stop you making that journey? And I think the only thing that would do that would be that you won't get to stay in this country. You will be detained and you will be removed forthwith from the territory. And we're not doing that, are we, Kevin?
No, we're certainly not, Tony. Detain and deport. You cannot, if you come across the channel illegally, you rescind your right to claim asylum like they do in Australia. Why do we not do this? Why do you think it is? I mean, what we're talking, is, to use the vernacular, is the bleeding obvious, isn't it? I mean, don't entice people to come here, just put up deterrents. What is it, do you think, Tony, that stops the government doing that? Why won't it do the obvious and set up deterrents rather than continue with this system of encouragements and enticements?
I think, personally, Kevin, that is a matter of political will. I think it needs very, very strong political will to do some of these things that some opponents will see as draconian, to detain people at our border and to keep them detained until they leave the country. We've had a series of judgments and laws passed over the last 20, 30 years, which argue for the opposite, Kevin. They argue for the fact that, well, these people are in fear of their lives, and we've got 51 conventions. I mean, 1951 Convention on Refugees, the 1951 Convention on Human Rights. Those conventions have now been pretty well, instilled into our legal frameworks, which say that they are paramount and that you must consider any application for asylum or any application for human rights. Now, I dispute that, Kevin, because as well as I do, back in the day, immigration officers had the power to refuse people, detain them and deport them, and nobody claimed asylum in the 70s or the 80s. We used to do that, but this legislation over a great amount of time has permeated into, or transformed, if you like, based on international convention, into a facilitation of illegal entry rather than a prevention of illegal entry. And so we need to get back to basics. That means, Kevin, taking some very bold steps and saying, well, no, we're not going to take any notice of the 1951 European Convention on Human Rights anymore. That's not relevant to today. The Asylum Convention already got a get out of jail clause. We can deny people asylum if they come from a safe country country, and the last government had a go at that, but probably didn't go far enough. So my own view is this is high politics, and it really requires someone, with the gumption of Tony Abbott in Australia, who stopped the boats under Operation Sovereign Borders. Trump, President
yeah.
Trump. This is the sort of leadership that you need that's going to have to smash this Gordian knot that's been tied around our borders. So I just want people to understand that this is not because the border force want to bring people ashore, because they want to facilitate. They are bound by the law, and the law does not permit them to do anything else other than under the law of the sea to rescue people. And once they've been rescued, they can enter this system. And that really needs to be broken somehow, Kevin, but it needs some very radical, I think, political thinking and changes in legislation to enable us to do that. And that's why I fear without that sort of political will, then the boats are just going to keep coming.
Yeah, and last point, Tony. Today, the government has announced, or the Home Office has announced, that they do not expect the numbers of illegal crossings of the English Channel to come down this coming year in 2026, which is a depressing announcement to say the least. But as you're implying there, conspiracy theorists say, it's because the government actually don't want to stop the migrants coming here. Well, when they make that kind of announcement after, as you say, the second worst year on record, 41,400 and counting, could end up by about 44,000 by the end of the year if the weather stays good. 5,000, and they say the numbers could be worse next year. You have to sort of have some sympathy with the conspiracy theorists who say that secretly this government does not want to stop these migrants coming, does not want to solve this crisis. There doesn't seem to be any other explanation for why they would say in the 12 months to come, folks, it's going to be worse.
Well, I think it's pretty clear when you look at the political parties going back to their manifestos and their approach towards this, that the current the Labour government are looking at safe and legal routes. They are much more sympathetic to refugee admissions than the Conservatives, and clearly Reform are further out to the right, saying, well, we can't have illegal entry at all. But I mean, all of these political parties, I've been around for a long, long time now, Kevin, worked for lots of governments in my time, are accountable to the British people, to the British public, to your listeners, who will ultimately judge them at the ballot box. And I think they are wise enough to see what's going in the polls, that actually they're going to have to do something about this, because if it continues as they say it will for the next 2 or 3 years, the public will simply get fed up with this, and they will vote with their crosses at the ballot box, and they will lose power. And I don't think they want to do that. So they will continue, I think, to try to announce measures, but the proof is always going to be in the pudding. Just follow these figures. That's their record. That's what we have to judge them by, Kevin.
Tony, well said. Great piece in the Sun. Very happy Christmas to you. Thank you for coming on. Tony Smith, former head of the UK Border Force. What do you think about what he was saying? I mean, we have a government that doesn't want to solve this crisis. That seems to be the backdrop to this worsening situation that we see. A government that says, well, we've had a really bad year, 41,500, probably be worse next year. Great. It's fantastic, isn't it? 03444991000. With a terrible Prime Minister, things could get worse. Wes Streeting is on manoeuvres. He wants the top job. He wants to get into number 10 quite clearly. We'll talk next to former Labour MP Simon Danczuk about some of Mr Streeting's policies and whether or not he has a realistic prospect of defenestrating two-tier Keir. I'd like to see two-tier Keir go. Not sure who I'd like to see replace him in at number 10, the Labour ranks full of people that might be even worse than him. We'll talk about that next, so stick around.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. In a little while, we're going to talk about sinkholes. The largest sinkhole in the world is 2,172 feet deep and 626 metres across, 3/4 of a mile across. Massive, massive, massive. That's in China. And there are lots of other very big ones around the world. The reason we're going to talk about sinkholes is you may have seen yesterday this extraordinary event up in Shropshire, a canal suddenly emptied like a bath that you're taking the plug out of. Boom! Completely dry. Bang! Massive hole build up. Longboats, barges falling into it. Extraordinary scenes. So we're going to find out exactly what happened there and what sinkholes are, what they're about, what makes them, what creates them. We'll talk to an expert very soon. Before we do that, though, let's talk about politics. Let's talk about the very ambitious Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, who, of course, gave a big interview on Sunday in The Observer, saying, why would anybody want the job of Prime Minister? I certainly don't. Yeah. Right. We believe that. If you believe that, I've got some swampland to sell you in Florida. Now, let's talk to former Labour MP Simon Danjuk. Hi, Simon.
Good morning, Kevin. It's really good to be with you.
Good to have you on board. Now, Wes Streeting, giving the traditional manoeuvres interview on Sunday to The Observer, saying, certainly no plans to take over number 10 Downing Street. Who would want that job? I mean, these people, who the hell is going to believe him there? He's on manoeuvres. Quite clearly, he's not the only one. So's Ed Miliband, so's Angela Rayner. They are sensing blood. The vultures are circling around the rotting carcass of our current Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, who cannot last too much longer. There's no doubt whatsoever about that. Wes Streeting, though, he perceives that the weakness of Keir Starmer is he's not strong enough on his bid to get ever closer to the EU. Wes Streeting has let it be known that if he got the top job, he would not only cosy up closer to Europe than even Keir Starmer, but he would want us to rejoin the customs union, which would mean we'd have to take EU rules, but we'd have no voting power. Well, frankly, Wes, if that's what you want to do, you can stick your prime ministerial bib where the sun don't shine, as far as I'm concerned. Your thoughts, Simon?
Oh, there's no doubt about it that Keir Starmer's nearly out the door. I mean, he'll be lucky if he survives beyond the May elections. The truth is, we can see that people are positioning, as you've pointed out, positioning to take over from him. And that's a massive distraction in government. Instead of focusing on delivering for what Britain needs, they're much more focused on their own political positions. But there's no doubt about it, Wes Streeting is positioning himself to take over. And that's what this is really about. Bear in mind, he was talking to the Sunday Observer, very much a Labour-orientated paper. They like the European Union. Wes wants to appeal to their readership. Lots of Labour members will read the Sunday Observer. Many Labour Party members themselves are pro-Europe. They are Remoaners. They want to go back into Europe. So it's part of his pitch. There's no doubt about that. And this isn't long after. Just a month ago, your listeners, viewers will remember that 10 Downing Street came out unilaterally criticising Wes Streeting for wanting to take over the leadership, and Streeting had to deny it then. But he's not letting up. He's come out in this Sunday Observer article really pushing his profile. That's the reality of it. And on it goes. In terms of the runners and riders, you mentioned Ed Miliband. I don't think he's realistic in terms of being able to achieve this, although he's very popular in the party.
The most popular cabinet
yeah.
minister. So when you say it's not realistic, I mean, the people who decide on this will be Labour Party members, and he is massively popular among them. So whilst, you know, those of us in the real world can think of nothing worse than mad, crazy Ed Miliband becoming Prime Minister. It's a terrifying possibility, potentially.
Well, the reason I think it isn't is because, and I recall it because I was in Parliament at the time, he took Labour into the 2015 general election and lost it badly. I mean, he was a complete disaster as Labour leader then. And so there are people within the Parliamentary Labour Party who will say, listen, Ed, you might well have ambitions and you might well have a lot of support from within the Labour Party membership, but, you know, you're just not a realistic opportunity. Then you've got Angela Rayner on manoeuvres. She wants to make a comeback. I think she'd be a disaster, but she's certainly ambitious. She's got a lot of support within the PLP and the Labour membership. The idea Wes Streeting was recently suggesting, or his team were, that they could cosy up with Angela Rayner, and word came back from Angela Rayner's team saying that she'd rather stick needles in her eyes than get close to Wes Streeting. Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, has had a good few weeks by Labour standards. She was at Tony Blair's recent Christmas party, got sort of an endorsement from Blair himself. And then, of course, we've got the perennial Andy Burnham, who's also very much on manoeuvres, no doubt about that. And here's a prediction for 2026, Kevin. I think what will happen, quite possibly, you'll recall Andrew Gwynn, the former health...
Yes, yeah, that he'll retire. That he's in disgrace, isn't he, for that?
Absolutely,
he steps down, gives Andy Burnham his seat. Andy Burnham is then able to challenge for the leadership. You think that will be what you would predict will actually happen? That our next Prime Minister might be Andy Burnham?
Yeah, well, what I'm saying is that Andrew Gwynn will retire from Parliament on health grounds. He was involved in the Shiver Me Timbers WhatsApp group. Yeah. He's really struggled. He will retire. There'll be a by-election in Tameside. Burnham will go for it. He will hope to win it, though he'll have a strong challenge for reform.
Yeah, that'd be funny if reform beats him, wouldn't it?
Well, that would be hilarious. Yeah, no, that'd finish his career. And he'll try and come back that way and then challenge for the leadership. But, it's a fascinating time in politics, but not good for the country.
Ironically, Wes Streeting's, kind of enthusiastic bid to take over it, his biggest problem is he's seen as being too close to Starmer, a sort of Starmer acolyte. So those who want a more radical left-wing approach to government than even Starmer, then Wes Streeting won't be their man. If you had to make a bet, Simon, as you say, I don't think there's any doubt that at some point this year, probably straight after the local elections in May, Keir Starmer will go. If you had to make a bet, who would you say will replace him?
If I was a betting man, I would put my money on Wes Streeting. I think he's very ambitious, he's very competent, a good communicator. I have a faltering admiration for him, but I think he could do it. But there are some outsiders, Heidi Alexander, John Healey, the Defence Secretary, even Steve Reid at local government. It could be a bit like the Thatcher-John Major situation, where somebody that we weren't expecting comes forward. But I'd put my money on Wes Streeting at this minute in time.
Hopefully not Angela Rayner. As I said yesterday, apparently she's working on her first book at the moment. She's almost finished colouring it in. Simon, really good to talk to you. Happy Christmas to you. Simon Danjit there, former Labour MP, with his predictions, his tips as to who may succeed Keir Starmer. He's saying it probably will be Wes Streeting in the end. Although a lot of Labour Party members think he's too close to Starmer, ironically. Who would you like to see? I mean, it's a bit like saying which disease would you rather catch. But out of that, the runners and riders, who would you like to see replace Keir Starmer? Who do you think might be slightly better? Angela Rayner, Ed Miliband, Shabana Mahmood, Wes Streeting? The list goes on. Who do you think? 03444991000. When we come back, we're going to talk about sinkholes. You saw that astonishing footage, those pictures of what happened in Shropshire, where a canal emptied as if somebody had taken the plug out of a bath, and all these long boats and barges falling into this new chasm. The canal suddenly completely dried up. What was going on there? What is a sinkhole? You know, what happens when you step outside your house and suddenly there's a great big hole in the middle of the street, and quite deep sometimes. What has happened there? Why does it happen? When does it happen? What are they all about? What are the biggest in the world? I just said the biggest one is in China, which is just like 3/4 of a mile across. And deeper than a mile. I think it's fair to say probably deeper, or getting on for half a mile, 3/4 of a mile deep. Massive, great thing. But there are lots of huge ones around the world. What are they? What are they all about? We'll find out after the break, so stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Now, I'm going to pronounce this wrongly, but the Llangollen Canal in Whitchurch, which is in Shropshire, yesterday morning around about 4 in the morning, basically it was like somebody pulled a plug out of a bath. It suddenly drained, massive hole fell out, all the barges falling into it, very dramatic stuff, big emergency, people having to be rescued. What happened there? What is a sinkhole? What's going on? They're talking about embankment failure. How did that happen? Let's talk to an expert. She's the residential lead at Mainmark Engineering, Freya Chapman. Welcome, Freya.
Hello, good morning.
Thanks for joining us. First of all, what happened in your view at this Shropshire Canal? I mean, very dramatic pictures, very dramatic footage. We're just looking at it now where we see one barge just going over this precipice, but it was as if someone had taken the plug out of a bath and it was drained dry. What happened there, Freya?
Well, obviously, really shocking scenes there. The Canal and River Trust head engineer is stating that it was due to embankment failure. However, this stretch and this branch of the the Shropshire Union Canal, is actually over 200 years of age. Now, it could be linked to a long-standing water leak. We've got sands, gravels, and clays here. Water is the direct enemy of sand. Therefore, it could have washed away some of the finer material, creating voiding, and over a period of time that's then come to the surface, and we've had this major collapse. Now, they do also state that there was a survey done within the last couple of weeks. It's very difficult to see with the naked eye what's going on there. What did that survey include? It doesn't sound like the inspection included a ground penetration radar survey, which would have picked up some voiding and would enabled the trust to undertake and mitigate the issues that they had there before it happened. This section will be on sort of degrading puddle clay lining. So this is a really old section of canal again, which would have again created voiding in that area. Those leakage has then created the collapse at surface level.
Yeah, OK. Now, the biggest sinkhole in the world, and there are some massive ones around the world. This is in China. I'm not going to bother to try and pronounce the name of the place, but it's 660 metres deep, 750 yards or something, and is 2,000 feet across. So that was like half a mile, 3/4 of a mile. Massive thing, huge one. What is a sinkhole? What causes a sinkhole, Freya?
So in simple terms, a sinkhole is where the ground can no longer support the weight that's above it, and then that creates the surface to collapse. Now, in China, you've also got seismic-related liquefaction caused from earthquakes, so that could also be a contributing factor. We don't have that here in the UK, but underlying causes in the UK normally involve sort of water-soluble ground or human activity. So sheet piling, vibrations in the ground can cause that, but here it looks more to do with the degrading of the puddle clay.
Okay, so what we're actually talking about, a sinkhole is basically, I've done stories about this before, I'm fascinated by them, that often when you get a lot of rain in particular, the ground, if you like, becomes almost liquid because there's so much water and precipitation in it, and therefore it is no longer essentially solid and cannot support the weight of the ground. Is that about right?
That's correct, yeah. So in sort of finer granular material, sands, etc., it will wash away that finer material, and over a period of time it will then create voiding. I mean, these voids could have been there for decades before now, and you could create actually a bridge across it until it actually collapses at surface level.
That's extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, we get them all the time, don't we, in this country? You get the roads that suddenly collapse and all that. Is there anything you can do to try to prevent them, or are they like earthquakes? You just can't see them coming and they just will continue to happen?
So, I mean, I think we need to be calling out for more surveying of certain areas. So in this stretch of this branch, it's over 200 years of age. So, of course, there's going to be historic sort of engineering methodology used here. So if they had potentially done a ground penetration radar survey, it may have been picked up sooner, but it's very difficult to do and to spot with the naked eye. There are certain signs at ground level, but generally they will open up very quickly at surface level.
Freya, really good to talk to you. Thank you so much. Really excellent stuff. Freya Chapman there, residential lead at Mainmark Engineering on the mystery of, well, it's not really a mystery, but sinkholes. What are you going to do about it? But amazing scenes in Shropshire. Let's go straight over to my next guest. Time to do Sun Sport or sport. We've got a sting for it, haven't we? Was it 90 minutes in 90 seconds? Should we do that first? Then I'll introduce the guest. Here you go.
90 minutes in 90 seconds from the Sun.
There you have it. Welcome to Manchester United correspondent at the Sun, Samuel Luckhurst. Morning, Sam.
Morning, Kevin. Thank you for having me on.
Good to have you on board. Not much to talk about in terms of Man United at the moment, but let's talk about the big match last night. I'm a Fulham fan, Fulham season ticket holder. We managed to beat Notts Forest, thank God for that. 1-0 at home, a penalty by Jimenez, who's got, I think, the best score penalty record in the Premiership, like 11 out of 11 now or something. But what I want to ask you about, I mean, that was a good result for Fulham, could have gone either way. Sort of bit of a bottom of the table tussle, really. But both sides, particularly us, Fulham, 3 of our best players out to the Africa Cup. Forest suffering a similar diminution in their squad due to the Africa Cup. I don't in any way want to deride the Africa Cup, but there's something quite annoying about the fact, this happened 2 years ago as well, that we're going to lose 3 of our best players for the next month. Slightly irritating for a lot of teams.
Yeah, in particular for Sunderland, I think they get hit heaviest by it. They lose 6 players and they've been doing exceptionally well this season. So it'll be interesting to see whether they tail off over the next month. I think a few years ago they did try and have the AFCON during the summer months, but because of the climate out in Africa, it's just not conducive for it, which is why it's always popping up midway through European seasons. I suppose the most annoying thing about it, in a way which is quite fair, is that it's every 2 years AFCON. Maybe it could be a little bit like World Cups are every 4 years, European Championship, Copa Americas, they're every 4 years. But it's something that they've been doing for a very long time, and it's probably a tournament that, due to, I suppose, social media getting more impressions and getting more engagement, it probably becomes more popular with every 2 years. Yeah,
it deserves our respect, you know, and I get it, but it's just a little bit frustrating for those of us struggling to survive. Let's talk about that. Who would the relegation battle? I mean, we pulled ourselves a little bit clearer of the trouble zone last night, but it's going to be a fight going forward. Who would your money be on going down this season?
Well, I think there are 2 certainties already with Wolves, who are worse than everyone expected them to be. Burnley also look like they're a sinking ship. And really, I'd probably go with West Ham. They've not had that managerial bounce under a manager who is clearly Premier League quality, Espirito Santo, but the timing there and the squad that he's inherited, January is going to be absolutely crucial for them. They are going to need the kind of Harry Redknapp style January transfer window from years gone by to really get that squad into shape and try and elevate it back to Premier League level, because they look a real mishmash at the moment. And it's not great when you obviously make a managerial change. What was it, six or 7 weeks into the season, and Nuno did a very good job at Nottingham Forest, and by all rights, he should probably still be there managing them in the Europa League.
Absolutely. Sam, good to talk to you. Thank you so much. Sam Luckhurst, there, Manchester United correspondent at The Sun, talking about Fulham beating Forest last night. Yeah. When we come back, let's talk to Baroness Claire Fox about some of the political stories of the day after the news, so you better stick around for that.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Earlier in the show, I just asked, this was right at the beginning, you know, with Charlie Rayleigh around about, who's awake then? 6 a.m. Who's awake? Loads of people say, I'm awake. Sam says, I'm awake and have been for most of the night. Thanks, pain. Obviously, Sam's got some kind of pain issue. Nothing worse than that, is it? Trying to get to sleep when you're in pain. My sympathy, Sam. Sam goes on to say, Merry Christmas to all at Talk. Samantha in Lancashire. Merry Christmas to you as well, Sam. And Tracy says, good morning, gentlemen. I'm wide awake from 4:30, getting ready for work, listening to Common Sense. It's needed with my morning cuppa. Well done, Tracy. Happy Christmas to you. Right, let's get on with the show. In a little while, I'm going to talk to the editor of the Jewish Telegraph, Paul Harris. I'm going to ask him what he thinks about the fact that Somerset and Avon Police are nearing the time limit, the statute of limitations on when, whether or not they can charge that bloke, Pascal Robinson Foster, the lead singer, I use the term loosely, of the rap group Bob Vylan, for his anti-Semitic calls to violence at the Glastonbury Festival, June the 28th. Death to the IDF, you remember that. The BBC, for some reason, screened that and left it on broadcast for the day. But that arguably is a crime. The Somerset and Avon Police interviewed Mr. Pascal Robinson, but they haven't charged him, and they've only got just a few days left. December the 28th, after that, they can't charge him. Why the reticence? Why the reticence? I wonder what that's all about. We'll talk about that in a minute. But first, let's talk about some of the political stories of the day with the excellent director of the Academy of Ideas. I've had occasion to appear at their events myself, Baroness Claire Fox. Morning, Claire.
Good morning, Kevin. Good morning.
Let me ask you, first of all, it's a story that cropped up yesterday, but I really want to get your take on it. Mary Ann Stevenson, no, me neither, never heard of her, but she is now the chair of the Equalities Commission. And she gave an interview to herald this new exalted position of hers by telling us all what to think about the migrant crisis. And she told us we must stop demonising migrants, and we must stop acting as if migration, illegal and legal, is a threat to Britain, some kind of threat to this country. Well, if you talk about crime, you talk about culture, you talk about the sheer affront to our sovereignty of thousands and thousands of mainly young men sailing across the Channel and just walking straight into our country, then I do think it's a threat to Britain. Who is this woman to tell us what to think?
It really was a preposterous intervention, this. I mean, the Equalities and Human Rights Commission, which is one of those quangos which, you know, could easily be abolished and the country would be better for it in many ways, has until recently been led by Kishwa Faulkner, Baroness Faulkner. And she went out of her way to be studiously at least neutral, you know, to only comment, and this is what the body is meant to do, on the impact on equalities and human rights law, how guidance should be worked through. And the big controversy there's been, and Kishwa Faulkner was in fact bullied over this, has been in relation to interpreting sex and gender and that controversy. It's remarkable that the new head of this body should come in and comment on an opinion. I mean, Kevin, your opinion on migration, my opinion on migration, her opinion on migration are all very interesting. They're the subject of public discussion and debate. We can all have different opinions. It has got absolutely nothing to do with an unelected quango as to what opinions people have. And she was basically telling people to shut up. You know, you're not allowed to say that out loud. I have defined in this position of running this body that you will be causing problems if you utter this opinion. It's a preposterous and genuinely chilling and dangerous way for the head of a very powerful body to operate within her first week of taking office.
Yeah, I'm sick to death of the great and the good, the left-leaning establishment telling us what we can and cannot think. And of course, she's very strong on not leaving the ECHR, the European Convention on Human Rights. She's a Labour appointment, so there you have it, Labour's policy. The migrant crisis. The government has today let it be known that they do not expect the numbers of illegal crossings across the Channel, which will come to about 42,000 by the end of this year, pretty much a record, the second highest number ever. They do not expect the numbers to come down next year, so they're expecting it to be even worse. They won't leave the ECHR. I mean, what do we do, Claire, about a government that has embroiled us in this kind of ongoing catastrophe that doesn't seem to have any plan on how to deal with it? What do we do about this?
Well, I think that it's become very clear that all of the rhetoric that the Labour government espoused about we are going to tackle this, and actually Shabana Mahmood is a better Home Secretary maybe than previous Labour Home Secretaries, certainly rhetorically has got a commitment to handling it, actually will not take the steps necessary to tackle the problem. And, you know, the newspaper story at the moment relating to this is, of course, where to house people when they arrive. And there's big rows about whether they should be in barracks, or the Labour government proclaiming bravely that they won't allow people to stay in hotels. But, of course, the prior problem is that once they arrive, they have to go somewhere, right? And so the thing that drives me mad about, say, the discussion about the barracks versus the hotels, or any of the what do we do about these migrants, is they shouldn't be here in the first place. And I think that the inability to just firmly say, we will put a stop to this, the fact that they won't consider leaving the the ECHR, all of these things would indicate a kind of lily-livered approach. They just don't have the bottle to tackle this. Now, I'm not saying it's an easy thing to tackle. I'm, you know, if you said to me exactly what is your policy, we could have an argument for ages about it, because I don't necessarily have the solution. But you don't feel as though they've got the will. They haven't got the courage to kind of face down their own backbench MPs to really deal with this. And it would require some quite serious policy interventions, which they're just not even contemplating.
And it just does seem as if they're staggering from one day to the next, just trying to get through 24 hours and then see what the next 24 hours will bring. So they've got this stated policy: we're going to reduce the number of asylum seeker hotels, the use of expensive hotels, many of them 4-star. I think it comes in that each migrant at these hotels costs us about £143 a night. When you consider there are, I think, 32,000 asylum seekers in hotels at the moment, that's a lot of money. So they say, oh, we're going to reduce the number of hotels that we use. We're going to use more and more barracks. A little hailed story last week. In the middle of the night on Thursday, they cleared out the Napier barracks in Folkestone. So suddenly, overnight, these hundreds of migrants who've been there since 2020 were gone. So there was some suggestion then that they might go to Crowborough, the East Sussex Army barracks that the local population protests passionately about every week, the use of this place. But that hasn't opened yet. So we don't even know where these migrants from Napier barracks went. There's some suggestion that some of them may be destined for Crowborough. But it just does look to me, Claire, as this is just an ongoing chaos, as this government just sort of desperately moves deck chairs around the deck of the Titanic with no real sense of purpose, no real plan, no real strategy to get to grips with any of this whatsoever.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? Because we all know that the hotels issue is both an affront financially, but has also caused huge problems in relation to local communities. And, you know, we've seen from the emergence of the pink ladies and the protests outside the hotels that putting a large group of undocumented males, largely in local communities, without any consultation or any of the rest of it, has caused great fears and has caused, as I know that you've been discussing, some people to have their safety jeopardized, right? And understandably, the hotels therefore are no longer acceptable. And even Labour will say that. But, having said that, they'll say that, they haven't come up with much else that's better. Now, it does seem to me, by the way, that army barracks are preferable. But as we've seen, or you can understand that if you've got these people here and you can start a deportation process, but in the interim, what is going to happen, that you might look at things like army barracks. Well, when you look at the mess they've made about Crowborough, they said that they were going to only do this while consulting local communities. They haven't done that in Crowborough. It's caused a massive to-do. And people in Crowborough have very resolutely voiced their opposition. There's been demonstrations regularly. Crowborough is not the kind of place that you have demonstrations, right? That the people are genuinely concerned. And those barracks, as it happens, were used for either community groups were meeting there, local cadets and so on. They've all been banned from going there. Crowborough itself says that local services will now be hard-pressed because there's going to be, of course, a use of services by these migrants turning up in the local area. So I think that I don't feel myself as though there's a proper systematic plan that's put to the country that gets the assent of people in this country for how to deal with migrants. And that's your point about people mysteriously disappearing in the middle of the night and nobody knows where they are. That's what it feels like all the time. Yeah. It's like things are happening and you don't know what's going on and there's no transparency. It's all behind the scenes. And at the same time, the story you started with, the government appointed head of a government quango then shouts at you and basically reprimands you if you dare voice any concerns about this and says that you're the problem. And so consequently, ordinary citizens of this country are tearing their hair out. And they are right, I think, to distrust a government that appoints somebody who shouts at us for talking about migration, whilst itself absolutely refuses to be open and honest about the problems of dealing with the illegal migrants and where they're housed.
Absolutely. And last week, with a view to what happened at the Napier barracks, suddenly emptied out after 5 years overnight, we got in touch with the Home Office. You talked about transparency. We said, well, what the hell happened? Where are they going? Where have you put them? We do not discuss operational measures.
Indeed, they never do.
What does that mean? What does that even mean? So, absolutely. Before you go, Claire, we're talking really, I think, about the freedom of the people of this country, freedom issues. It is not the correct behaviour of a free country, in my view, for the police force to record non-crime hate incidents. When people haven't broken the law, they should not be being collated by the police force, but they are. Today on the front page of the Telegraph, there's what looks like a sort of encouraging headline. It says, non-crime hate to be scrapped. Then it says, non-crime hate incidents are to be scrapped under plans that police chiefs will present to the Home Secretary next month. In other words, the Home Secretary hasn't made a decision. And then you read more into it. Basically, police chiefs are suggesting that they record fewer non-crime hate incidents as opposed to actually scrapping them. This is an affront to the freedom of the citizens of this country, that the police force should be snooping on them, spying on them, surveilling them, collating their details when they haven't broken the law. This has to stop, doesn't it?
Look, I want this to be a happy, good news story. I want to say, happy Christmas, everyone. We did it. We've got rid of non-crime hate incidents. And look, we have to take some credit here. I think you, Kevin, and Talk can take some credit. I think that campaigners like the Free Speech Union, I hope the Academy of Ideas, and of course the high-profile incidents of people like Alison Pearson, and in fact we have to give some credit, would you believe, to JD Vance, because he mentioned them as well.
Yep.
Basically, there's been an exposure of these non-crime hate incidents. I remember when I spoke about it first in the House of Lords, about 5 years ago, And people around the chamber were kind of looking at me like I was making it up. You know, they didn't even know these things existed. It was so preposterous that police should be investigating non-crimes and recording them and arresting people. So there's been a campaign, and we should take some credit for the fact that this has become a huge embarrassment for the government, for the police, and internationally people know it's a sign that free speech is not safe in the UK. However, despite my celebrations a bit, and I do think something has occurred, I'm nervous that we can have cautious optimism that something's changing, but let's be honest, there's a whole industry of hate crime officers and paraphernalia. The whole thing has seeped into our culture. So I'm fearful that you can get headlines saying we're getting rid of them, and then when you actually scratch the surface, there'll still be the surveillance that you talk about, still the suspicion that people are being hateful, and the new head of a new agency who goes around saying that it's hateful to raise problems about migration does not bode well, does it?
It certainly doesn't. Claire, wise words as always. Very happy Christmas to you. Thank you so much.
Same to you, Kevin. Take
Cheers, Claire. Baroness Claire Fox there, Director of the Academy of Ideas, the excellent Baroness Claire Fox. Listen, let's go to break now. When we come back, we're going to talk about Bob Vylan, that guy, Pascal Robinson Foster, who is the lead singer of that rap group. If you remember, it was almost 6 months ago when he called for the death of Jewish people, death to the IDF. I'm not that keen on hate crime laws. I'm not that keen on people being prosecuted for things they say, but those laws are there, and he clearly broke them. Why have the Somerset and Avon police failed to charge him? They've only got a few more days. It was June the 28th at Glastonbury that he shouted to the crowd and millions of TV viewers, death, death to the IDF, the Israel Defence Force, Jewish soldiers. Death, death to the IDF. That must surely break the law. That must be incitement to racial violence, incitement to racial hatred, etc., etc. They've interviewed Pascal Robinson Foster. They have considered it. They've talked to the CPS, the Crown Prosecution Service. No charges. Unless they charge him by December the 28th, he walks free, absolutely free, because that's the statute of limitations. They have just, what is it, 23rd today, isn't it? So they've got 5 more days. Will they charge him, or will they let him get away with it? And if they let him get away with it, why? We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
Brand new for 2026. It's going to be the only way to start your day. It's the home of common sense. It's where the nation can come to speak about the day's news. It's the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. You know who you are. You get up, you graft, you work hard. I'm here for you. We want to hear your side. Promise you one thing. It is where the nation can and will come to talk. The Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show, weekdays from 6 a.m.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's talk about Pascal Robinson Foster, that down-to-earth street name of the guy who brought up on the mean street of Ipswich. He's the lead singer of Bob Villain, that rap band. You remember, it was June the 28th. At Glastonbury, where he thrilled the crowd by inciting them to kill Jews. Death to the IDF, the Israel Defence Force. Now, he has subsequently been interviewed by the police with a view to the fact this does seem like a clear case of inciting racial violence, inciting racial hatred, calling for the deaths of Jews. This is anti-Semitism before our very eyes. The BBC, of course, treated us to screening this live and then leaving him on screen for 40 minutes. They said that was a bad mistake. BBC making a mistake, there's a change. The police have interviewed him. They've gone to the Crown Prosecution Service. Here we are, nearly 6 months on, 5 days to go before the statute of limitations runs out. And he will not be able to be charged with any offence whatsoever. Why? Why have the Avon and Somerset police done nothing about this? Let's talk to the editor of the Jewish Telegraph, Paul Harris. Well, there's the question, Paul. Why do you think the Avon cops have done nothing about this? They say they've interviewed him, they've consulted the CPS, the Crown Prosecution Service, and yet no charges whatsoever. They got 5 more days, otherwise he got away with that scot-free. Why? Why haven't they done anything?
The police, in many cases, are not clear what their own guidelines are. They don't seem to be aware of when something is illegal. We've seen this with some of the hate marches and some of the chanting in London, Manchester and other places. The bobbies on the beat don't seem to know when they can take action to arrest anybody, and their superiors seem unsure about what constitutes a hate crime and what doesn't. I can only speculate about something else possibly. Bob Villain is pretty litigious as well. His lawyers are coming in pretty hard. He's already sued RTE, the Irish station, for defamation because they suggested he was anti-Semitic, and he received an apology from the Manchester Evening News not long ago, which suggested that he had done a Nazi salute on stage, which he vehemently denied and said it was just part of his warm-up act. Are the police worried? I don't know that his lawyers will be on to them if they try anything. I don't know. That's pure speculation.
Yeah, that old, you've heard, how many times have you heard that? I'm not anti-Semitic, I've just got reservations about Israel, Israel's policies in the Middle East, etc., etc. We know that story. The police, Avon and Somerset police said, in terms of interviewing Pascal Robinson Foster, it has, but listen to this, Paul, it has been important for us to have a full understanding of any legal precedents, which is a complex process, and therefore over the past couple of months we have been seeking early legal advice from the Crown Prosecution Service. Advice from the CPS was received during the week commencing Monday, October the 20th. Following a review of the advice, a voluntary police interview was arranged to help us progress with our inquiries, which was held yesterday, blah, 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 blah. I mean, complex? Is it complex? Shouting death to the IDF? Why is that complex?
Well, they must have a massive in tray, that's all I can say. If it's taking so long to sift through all this information, it seems pretty straightforward. It either is or it isn't incitement to hatred. I mean, this is disgusting, unsavoury, and of course we know what the intention was, and we only had to hear the reaction of the crowd at Glastonbury. The BBC has already admitted breaching its own guidelines, but that's not unusual for the BBC. Their in tray's bigger than the police, I think. But you know, I think any normal person would realise that this is unsavoury at the very least, and certainly an incitement to violence. I mean, just look at him on stage.
Yeah, and where does it fit in? You know, only the last few days the police have said, right, from now on, we're going to seriously police these pro-Palestine marches, which could also be called anti-Israel marches more accurately. In fact, mainly I think they're anti-Semitic marches. They're just Jew hate marches. The police saying right from now on, anybody we hear chanting "Globalise the Intifada," we will arrest them. No more jihad chanting, no more from the river to the sea. I'll believe that when I see it. But how does it fit in with this stated new police tough policy against anti-Semitism that the Avon and Somerset Police Force look as if they have decided not to charge Pascal Robinson Foster with any offence, despite going onto live television, watched by millions of people, watched by hundreds of thousands of people at Glastonbury, shouting death, death to the IDF, calling for the death of Jewish people. How does that fit in? If the Avon police are saying, well, that's fine, how does that fit in with the new alleged tough policy by the cops about anti-Semitism at these pro-Palestine marches?
Well, first of all, we don't know that they're not going to charge him yet. We've yet to see. They do have a few days yet in which to do it. We live in hope. You described these marches in London. I mean, we as a newspaper describe them as hate fests, which is basically what they are. Yeah. Anybody who has ever attended one of these or seen what goes on, they are intimidating and deliberately intimidating. When you look at these rallies, I'm afraid that Jewish people can only hark back to the Nazi era, and you see Hitler whipping up hatred, and that's exactly what these marches do. I think any Jewish person would steer clear of these because they are dangerous, there's no doubt about it. The police do seem very, very weak. They seem disinclined to take action when they should. You get the odd case where somebody is arrested, or the people are stopped from doing what they're doing on stage or whatever they're doing. But there is no doubt about it that the police are not acting as they should. Maybe it's the sheer volume of the numbers. They can't. But these marches have to stop. And I don't think you can blame the police entirely. This is at government level. The government should be stopping these. There should be serious legislation to stop these taking place at all. Look, as a newspaper, we acknowledge the right to free speech. This is not free speech. This is hate.
I suppose, I'm kind of ambivalent about this. I'm on your side, Paul. I think you know that. I abhor anti-Semitism. I abhor Jew hate. I don't like these marches at all. But I do believe in the right to protest. What I would like to see, I wouldn't personally, I respect anybody who says he wants to ban them, particularly someone like yourself, but I personally would not ban the marches, but I think they must be policed properly. The police are now I've been to a few of them as an observer. They just stand back and they allow law breaking. They allow jihad chants. They allow from the river to the sea, which means annihilate the Israel state, and so on and so forth. So all I would say is let the marches happen. That's the right to protest, but police them properly. If you don't police them properly, then the whole law becomes a joke.
Well, how can they actually police them when there are such vast numbers taking part? It's impossible. But a small number of bobbies, what are they supposed to do? Yeah. I do draw a parallel here. After Bondi Beach, there were rallies, Jewish rallies all over the world, in Manchester, in London, in support of the Jewish community of Sydney. Did you see anything like what you're seeing on screen happening at these? They were quiet, they were peaceful, and they were dignified. When the Jewish community protests or stands in vigil, they don't behave like this. The only police presence is for the security of those taking part, not for the security of the public who happen to be passing by. So there is a parallel. Why is it necessary to behave in this way? If they want to protest, do it quietly, peacefully, and without any of the hate chants.
I think we know what's going on. There's something very dark and sinister happening at the moment around the world. Don't forget that not long before the Bondi Beach atrocity, there was a demonstration by pro-Palestine supporters outside the Sydney Opera House where the police looked on while the crowd chanted "Gas the Jews." If the police do nothing, if nations do nothing, when anti-Semitism explodes and rises, years, it will just keep on getting worse. And, you know, it was 12 days after Britain and Australia recognised Palestine that the Manchester synagogue horror happened, and now Bondi Beach. So if you do nothing about anti-Semitism, it just keeps on getting worse, right?
I must say, I put this question to Keir Starmer just last week at Downing Street. I actually asked him whether he didn't feel now, in hindsight, that he and other leaders who prematurely recognised a Palestine state while the hostages still hadn't all been released, was something which encouraged anti-Semitism and anti-Israel behaviour. And his answer to me was, no, not at all. This was going on long before that.
Honestly, so infuriating. Paul, compliments of the season. Thank you for all your help over the years, and very good to have you on the show today.
And my greetings to all your viewers and listeners too, and to everybody at Talk.
Thank you so much, Paul. Paul Harris, they're the excellent editor of the Jewish Telegraph. I wonder, what do you think? They got 5 days, the Avon police, to decide whether or not they're going to charge Bob Vylan's singer Pascal Robinson Foster for racial incitement to violence offences for shouting death to the IDF at Glastonbury. I wonder whether or not they will do so. Let me know what you think if you like. 03444991000. When we come back, we're going to talk about Zach Polanski, or David Paulden, as he was born. He's the leader of the Green Party, making a lot of headway at the moment. Recruitment massively up. He's in danger of endangering the Labour Party, so good luck, Zach. You have my blessing. But Zach Polanski, I want to ask about him. What kind of a person, even in the past, tells women that through the power of hypnotism they can increase the size of their breasts? What kind of a person does that? And why would he change his name from David Paulden? Why did he do that? I mean, Polanski, he says that's his grandfather's name, who escaped Nazi oppression. So that's Polanski. Zach is some kind of character that he liked in a movie. So why would someone change their name, and why would someone promise women that he could make their breasts, their boobs, bigger through the power of hypnotism, when, of course, that's utter nonsense? So let's talk about that guy when we come back, shall we? Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's talk about Zach Polanski. He's the leader of the Green Party, as I say, making a lot of headway. I mean, he's a decent performer on TV, talks well, comes across very plausibly, seems like a nice chap and all that. I don't believe in a word he says. His policies are barking mad. Left wing doesn't even come into it. That's only the beginning of the story. This guy is like left over left. Emphasis on the left over. But seriously, let's talk about the man, though. Let's talk to psychologist and writer Wendy Gregory. Welcome, Wendy.
Good morning.
Let me ask you this. What kind of a guy, what do we read into the fact, or to a person who once, admittedly 12, 13 years ago, for a living, persuaded women that he could increase the size of their breast through the power of hypnotism? He's apologised for that. He said, I apologised for that 12 years ago. He went on to say, what I would say is that I apologise. Well, I apologised 12 years ago. And one of my favourite politicians, Tony Benn, often said, I don't care where you came from, I care where you're going. OK, fair enough. But I wouldn't hold myself up to be a sort of a towering figure of moral probity, but I don't think I'll ever do that. I would never have done something like that, to actually con women into pretending that I could increase the size of their breasts through hypnotism. What do we read into a person who, though he's apologised for it, did that in the first place? What would you make of that?
Well, it's a difficult one to say, really. Do we know that he conned women, or did he actually?
Yes.
Or did he actually believe that?
No, he sat down and he told them he could increase the size of their breasts through the power of hypnotism. That's not possible. He did that. That's why he's apologised for it.
Okay. I mean, I would still say he may have believed that he could do that, but I get what you're saying.
If that is even less appropriate to lead a political party, of course you can't increase the power of the size of people's breasts through hypnotism. He didn't believe that. That's why he said sorry.
Okay, so he wanted to make money, I guess, and he wouldn't be the only person in politics that has done some dodgy things to make money. So, yeah. I mean, we've all done stuff that we're ashamed of. I've never met the man, so I always feel it's difficult to really comment because, I can't really read what's going on in his head. He has apologised for it. Yes, it was awful, but I think that's part of a much wider issue, really. The whole issue of women feeling that they need to increase the size of their breasts. And, I could go on a massive feminist rant about that, but maybe he was just doing what loads of surgeons do. I know that they actually do increase the size of women's breasts, but I think there's a really big issue in there.
You do it by surgery, yeah, but not through hypnotism. That, no. Of course, he's not stupid. He knew that didn't work, but he did it.
Yeah, he did. So, as I said, he wanted to make money, I guess. Like lots of people. Lots of people promise they can help people and make them lose weight or do this or do that through the power of the mind. It comes up online all the time. I mean, I don't know him. I'm not taking any political stand here or any side. Yes, it was wrong. I mean, that's all I can say about it. He has apologised, and there's nothing really more to say.
Does it portray, Wendy, in your expert view, a certain ruthlessness?
Yes.
Good answer. Good answer.
Yeah,
and by the way, a certain ruthlessness I wouldn't say is a bad trait in a politician. They do
exactly that.
When the chips are down, they do have to be ruthless. So it's possible that this nefarious former career of his might actually be quite good in terms of his new career as a leading politician.
I mean, basically, he was doing what lots of politicians do, lots of people do. He was trying to give women what they wanted, but albeit he was, as you've said, I don't like to use that word, but he was conning them, and he was making money for himself. But I mean, that's what politicians aim to do, or they aim to make people believe that they're going to give them what they want. So maybe that's a positive trait for a future politician. But at that time, he wasn't thinking about being a politician, so he probably wouldn't have done it if that had been the case.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, my next question about Zach is this. It's not really his name. His name is David Polden. He changed his name to Zach Polanski. Polanski apparently is the name of his Jewish grandfather who escaped Nazi oppression. So he took that Polanski name. Zach is the name of his of a Jewish character in his favourite novel, Goodnight Minister. Goodnight, Mr. Tom. Sorry. So, what do you read into someone who wants to change their name from David Polden to Zach Polanski? Why would someone do that in the political arena?
Yeah, well, I don't think it's that uncommon anyway for ordinary people. I went to a school where we had about 25% Jewish girls, and a lot of them didn't have what recognisable Jewish names. But when you got talking to them, exactly the same thing. When their grandparents had escaped, the Nazi perpetrators, they changed their name to a non-Jewish sounding name because they found they encountered anti-Semitism when they came here. It's quite interesting. It follows on nicely from your previous guest, what you were talking about then. We had anti-Semitism then in the war, even though we were fighting Hitler, who was perpetrating anti-Semitism. So they changed their names deliberately because of that. So I don't read anything sinister into that. Changing his first name, well, I think, I don't think that's that uncommon either. It's just Zach is a bit...
hang on, but the thing is, Wendy, I know what you mean. There's a lot of people in America in particular called Robinson, whose real name is Rubenstein. They changed their name to avoid anti-Semitism. So there's a lot of that going on. Zach, or David is his real name, he's done it the other way round.
Yeah.
So he's gone from David Polden, which doesn't have any connotations at all, to Zach Polanski, very Jewish. Why would you think he would do something? What would be the reason, the impulse to do something like that?
Well, again, without talking to him, it's hard to know for sure. I would say there's two probable reasons. One is just to look cooler.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of a cool name, isn't it, Zach Polanski?
It is a cool name. It is a cool name, and I know women who were christened Susan or Jane, and they've just changed their names because it's just
too boring.
My personality isn't Susan or Jane. It's something more glamorous. And as we know in the film world, most film stars don't go by the names that they were born.
That's true. Yeah, you're right about that. Movie stars change that, but that's often. Actually, if they've got crap names, they change their names to something cooler. But they often change their names because they may duplicate existing actors and things like that. So there are several reasons why showbiz stars change their names. But mostly, you're right, is to have cooler names. That seems to me what Zach has done. He just thinks David Polden. David Polden, no offence to all the David Poldens out there, but it's a bit of a vanilla name, isn't it? So
absolutely.
He's gone for something a lot more eye-catching. It's as simple as that, do you think?
Yes. Well, there is another possible reason, and again, we don't know this. Some people change their names because they've had a very troubled past, or they've been abused as children, and they just want to be somebody different. It's a kind of... they're changing their identity in a way. Yeah. And I know when I went to college, which was about 100 years ago, I knew somebody there. Well, there was more than one person actually that had childhoods that they'd rather forget, and so they changed their name completely. So they felt as if they were starting a new life because they had a different name and they could actually reinvent themselves. Maybe he wanted to reinvent himself. And, it is a much more charismatic name. It's a much sexier name.
Zach Polanski is a good name. I've got to give him that.
It sounds like a film star, actually.
Yeah.
It does sound like a film star type of name, I think.
Well, perhaps I'll just nick it. Perhaps I'll just start calling myself Zach Polanski, see how I get on. That could cause great confusion. Wendy, great to talk to you. Thank you very much. Very happy Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas, yes.
Wendy Gregory there, psychologist and writer on the complex man that is Zach Polanski. David Polden, as his real name is. What was going on there? And what was going on when he persuaded women he could make their boobs bigger by hypnotising them. Yeah, that's going to work. Right, let's go to break. When we come back, comedian Steve N. Allen will join us. because we're going to talk about pantomimes. Oh, yes, we are. And the reason is that naturally, with the sickening inevitability, many of them are this year coming with trigger warnings. You know, watch out, what's in this pantomime, it could traumatise you. You know what we're talking about, but warning that A Christmas Carol is full of ghosts. Ooh, I didn't know that. We'll talk about the trigger warnings on pantos straight after these messages.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Now, if you're going to Panto this year, beware, because the theatre owners, the bosses, are going to warn you, going to hit you with trigger warnings, informing you that perhaps be careful of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, as the Sheffield Crucible Theatre warns us. Be careful, because it contains a portrayal of ghosts. Ooh, thank you very much. Also, if you're going to go and see Julian Clary, he's at the London Palladium. He is at Sleeping Beauty. Apparently, audiences there are going to be warned that there may be innuendo in this panto. Julian Clary, innuendo. At the Everyman Theatre in Cheltenham, Robin Hood and the Merry Men could cause you all sorts of trauma. They are being warned there, people who go to see that pantomime. Panto is a lot of fun, but sometimes it can be a little loud and a little bit cheeky, and some jokes that only grown-ups will understand. Please bear this in mind if you are bringing anyone under the age of 5 or anyone with a nervous or more sensitive disposition. What is this nonsense? Let's talk to comedian Steve N. Allen. Hi, Steve. The fun police are at it again, aren't they?
They are, and that's the good thing about a trigger warning. It lets you know that the fun police have already been around. They've probably taken out any good jokes, so maybe avoid that one. But it happens every year, doesn't it? Yeah, the idea that you need to be warned that there might be ghosts in A Christmas Carol. If you've never heard of it before, sorry to spoil the ending for you. There might be some themes of death. If you're not ready for that, I'd just stay in. Do you know what I mean? If you need a trigger warning on a panto, I don't think outdoor life is for you. There was some great ones as well. The idea of Julian Clary needing a warning for innuendo.
Yeah.
That's like when they say, may contain nuts on peanut butter. Like, duh, you'd expect it to have that.
That's it. That's a good analogy. That's exactly it. I'll tell you one thing, but this is the Everyman Theatre in Cheltenham, where Robin Hood and his merry men are bringing festive cheer to theatre goers in that pantomime. They're saying that, you know, this, as often happens, that this production may contain cheeky jokes that only grown-ups will understand. So it says, be careful if you're bringing anyone under the age of 5 for that reason. So according to this theatre, it's okay to crack smutty adult jokes to 6-year-olds.
Yeah. But the idea of having jokes that children don't get, then you don't need to worry that children are there, because they won't get them. The only people who need this trigger warning are grown-ups who can't handle jokes for 5-year-olds or for 6-year-olds, as you say. And again, if that's not for you, I don't know why you're trying to deal with the world. There was a trigger warning on, I think it's Gloucester's Cheltenham Playhouse, when they did Dick Whittington, said may include rude jokes. It's called Dick Whittington. If you can't, you know, the hint's there already. Yeah. There was a Cinderella one at the Roses Theatre that said that people of a nervous disposition might not like it because they shout, he's behind you. I mean, maybe there are some people who get terrified by that. Imagine that. People sat in the audience going, where is he? Where is he? Again, you don't need trigger warnings. My favourite trigger warning story ever was there was a stage version of The Sound of Music, and the trigger warning info included may contain music. It's a musical, and it's called The Sound of Music. If you didn't expect music, I don't know what you're doing.
And if you're traumatised by music, then I think you need help. Also, a production of Oliver Twist that's at the Derby Theatre. People who go to that pantomime are being warned that in keeping with Dickens' 19th century novel, this production reflects the social challenges and attitudes of that time. Well, guess what? Then it goes on to say this is a trigger warning for Oliver Twist. It includes difficult themes such as poverty, crime and the exploitation of vulnerable children, which are portrayed with care and a commitment to authenticity. I mean, what is this? This is a trigger warning about the entire plot of Oliver Twist.
And it would get into the stage where anything other than sitting in a comfy chair will need a warning. And I don't think any art would be worthwhile if you just saw bland people having a nice day. And that's the only way you could make something that doesn't require a trigger warning these days. Like, the whole nature of a plot needs to have some sort of adversity to overcome. So if Oliver Twist was just like doing well, there's no story. If you look at all of the plots of anything, if no one had anything to go up against, anything, scenes of mild, what's the theme that there's a phrase they use, they're like mild, it's not even mild terror, mild shock was the one at the Sheffield's Crucible Theatre. Yeah. Mild shock in A Christmas Carol. Well, yeah, because a ghost turns up. What do you expect? With these trigger warnings, it's going to make everything bland and no one will watch anything then.
Have you ever done panto, Steve?
Not performing it since being really young, like school stuff. I wrote a song for one in Windsor once. Oh, okay. So I'm more on the writing side, which is so much better because that way you don't have to turn up. I did go and watch one when I was dating an actress, and I forgot that I'd be surrounded by kids. It looked really odd that I was just at a panto on my own.
Exactly right. But if you want to know, folks, why so many big stars appear in pantomimes, it's because they get paid massive amounts of money. My friend Christopher Biggins, I think, is in panto this year in Birmingham. And old Chris is, he's not in the best of health, I guess. He's going to do it on a mobility scooter. He said, I can't do it. This is the second year in a row he's done panto on a mobility scooter.
Does there have to be a trigger warning, like may include bad parking?
May include mobility scooters. But the money they pay him, it's year-long money. So people get huge amounts of money for these productions, don't they?
Yeah, in that case, I am available. Put all the trigger warnings you want on me. I'll take it for the money.
Exactly right. Steve, good to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Happy Christmas to you. Steve N. Allen, a comedian on Trigger Warnings on Pantos. I do believe Alex Phillips might be joining me in just a little few minutes and seconds, or what's she hanging around in the control room now? I know she's going to come in here in a minute. I do. Listen, I'll be back with you tomorrow morning. In the meantime, at 6 a.m. I expect you to be there for another breakfast show in my excellent presence. And as I said earlier, I will also be back Sunday week for some reason, so I'll be doing breakfast then. Alex Phillips is going to take you through from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. and she's entering the studio now. She's looking fantastic. She's got some kind of a leopard skin top. Looking foxy. Am I allowed? I'm not allowed to say that, am I? I'm not. Trigger warning, may contain sexist comments. Good morning, Alex.
All right. I don't sound particularly.
Oh, my God. Look.
I don't sound as good as I look, perhaps.
Well, you're looking good anyway.
Oh, my, thank you.
So, what's up? You got the bug?
Yeah, do you know, it sort of took hold on Saturday, and I just thought, oh my God, I'm just going to try and sleep when I'm not on air, and I've woken up this morning with the voice.
The voice.
So, yeah, there you go. Not much I can do about that, but there you are.
Well, with your deep and gravelly and rather attractive voice, what's going to be on your show?
News and views and
news
opinions.
And views.
Yeah, can you believe it?
Any particular news?
Well, you know, lots of news.
What are you doing? You've got your running order.
I have got my running order.
What's your first item?
We were going to go through this. It's all about the barracks to house migrants within weeks.
That's Crowborough.
Do you know the second item?
Do you know? No, I'll tell you just an interesting fact you might want to incorporate. Last Thursday night, or last Thursday morning, the relieved residents of Folkestone woke up to discover that after 5 years, the Napier barracks had been emptied of all its migrants, all its asylum seekers. We phoned up the Home Office and said, well, where have they gone? Oh, well, we don't discuss operational details. We don't know where they've gone. Where does that fit in?